And a pleasant good afternoon to everyone out there in Irish Breakdown land. I am Vince D'Addario. That guy over there is Brian Driscoll, and we are fresh off of the blue gold game over at Notre Dame Stadium. Blue skies, puffy white clouds, a little bit of wind, obviously, but so it's a little cooler than I think probably anybody would have liked. The wind was
a little
really
bit more
howling
windy
there.
than Mitch Jeter would have liked.
Well, fair enough. I mean, the fact that they even trotted him out for a 50-yard field goal straight into the teeth of that wind was like, really?
Yeah, now's the time to try it, man. Now's the time to try it. You know, let's see if you can do it now. So
I guess I don't know if I would have felt good about that in no wind, but obviously that one came up short. But we're not really going to talk a whole lot of special teams because there wasn't a whole lot of special teams to talk about.
The only mention I'll have is when we get to the running back section,
okay,
because I think that kickoff to start was indicative of how one of those running backs is going to look today.
Fair enough.
We'll get into that. Little tease.
Fair enough. The only thing.
The day started off pretty rough for you and I, Vince, man. You know, almost got in a fight before the thing even started.
I'm over here playing on my phone, and
we drove together to the game.
We drove together. We pull into the parking lot, and parking was a free-for-all, and they warned us of that because there was a baseball game, a softball game, a lacrosse game, a hockey tournament, and the blue gold game. And if anybody's ever been on Notre Dame, campus, parking is kind of at a premium anyway. And
before you sell me out too much, let's just say the jackhole that was in charge of the parking where we tried to park doesn't understand physics, geometry, or common decency.
Fair enough.
So,
common sense as well. I think I'd throw in.
Sure that he knew that.
Yeah,
I made it very clear that he knew that. So not my proudest moment, Vince, but I was ready for that's how ready I was for the game today.
Ooh, you were fired up.
Yeah.
Let's just say we didn't park where this octogenarian wanted us to park. And
see, now you're making me look like I was about to beat up a 90-year-old. Come on, man.
He's 80, octogenarian.
But it was cool. And then also we went from there. We went over to listen to Coach Pete Vabakwa and Marcus Freeman and Jack Swarbrick kick off the new building that they're having. I've spoken to a couple sources about this throughout the week. This is going to be a 9-figure deal that's closer to 2 than a 1 at the beginning, from what I'm told. The original plans, the rumors of plans were that it was going to be an extension of the Goog. Then it was going to be, kind of connected a little bit, or it was going to be a renovation of the Goog.
Right.
Then it would be an extension of the Goog. And now it's just a brand new football facility. And Notre Dame's going to be guaranteed a national championship now because they're going to have a cafeteria for athletes only, which means you're going to have a chef. And since that was the only thing that kept Notre Dame from winning a championship in the Brian Kelly era, then they should win one now because
prediction 24 national champs.
It is going to be just some of the things that they talked about, but some things I've heard about it. This is going to be a big time facility, big time facility. And I'm curious what they're going to do with the Goog, put some new people in the Goog, some coaches that are other sports, and they're going to get hopefully new offices and all that. So lots going on today, Vince, but lacrosse, number 1 ranked men's lacrosse team had a W today. Jordan Faison had a couple goals. But the big deal on campus today, man, was the blue gold game.
Yeah.
It was a fun day.
It was a fun day because I thought overall the teams were kind of equally, divided up. Maybe one was a little stronger offensively, but then they made up for it on defense or whatever the case may be. And it was very back and forth. It was good. We were close. We were close. The cops may or may not have been threatened. I'm just saying. But it was a very back and forth game. I thought there were good things on both sides of the ball, good things from both teams, things they need to work on. It's a spring game. It's not going to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And one thing I want to point out also, Brian, when we were driving home, we were kind of talking about it and kind of downloading what we thought. You listed off all the players that were unavailable.
Oh, yeah.
Or that aren't even on campus yet.
Yeah.
And it is a laundry list of guys that obviously they're going to be counting on. And those guys are all, athletic freaks. And so it's only going to make this team that much better.
I mean, Vince, you're talking about the game and what I loved about it, just overall, big picture, we'll talk about just the game itself, big picture, what it meant. And I enjoyed how back and forth it was. It was like the blue team was kind of dominating early. Then the gold team rallied back. There were 3 touchdowns in the first half. Each quarterback led a touchdown drive in the first half. Gold team kind of started coming on in the second half, and the blue rallied with the big play at the end. It was a competitive scrimmage. There was a lot of pad popping today. I thought the offensive line, controlled parts of it. The defensive line controlled other parts of it. The receivers won some battles over here. The DBs won some battles over there. It was one of those things, Vince, where this really was a coach's dream. Now, Al Golden's not going to think that because he's going to be like, we gave up 5 touchdowns.
Right.
And Mike Denbrock's not going to think that because he's going to focus on the turnovers and because that's how coaches think. But
absolutely,
as a head coach, Marcus Freeman's probably pretty happy today because he's like, look, both sides of the ball battled today. Both sides of the ball competed today. We looked athletic. We looked physical. There were some mistakes that we got to clean up, but there was also a lot of high football IQ plays being made today. And then he's going to think about this, and this is the point you were leading me to. And they did all that without Riley Leonard, without Jadarian Price, without Kedron Young, without Mitchell Evans, without Bo Collins, without Jordan Faison, without Jaden Thomas, without Logan Saldate, without, now I'm on the defensive side, without Benjamin Morrison, without Rod Hurd. There were some guys that are going to be back and part of this football team. Jaden Harrison. We didn't see Jaden Harrison today.
Yeah,
receiver, who I forgot to mention. There was a lot that wasn't even available today to this football team, and yet they still went out and looked at every position. Like somebody made a play today at every single position. Yeah. Quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, O-line, D-line, linebacker, DB.
Right.
Like literally today, somebody made a play at every position. And that's honestly where you want it to be, Vince, because if one side dominates, offense or defense, that's not good. Because that means you've probably, unless you got like 19 LSU, that means your defense is probably struggling if your offense goes out there and balls out. If your defense just dominates, that means you got some issues on offense. And you also don't want it to be like this, and that's why you don't want it to be like 42-35 or something like that, because that means your defense didn't stop anybody. It was a good back and forth game. You had some guys that we expect to play well, played well. Guys that maybe we didn't expect to play well. Guys that we were uncertain of had some moments. It was a really good day. And we saw a lot was what we saw last week. But just overall, Vince, if you're a head football coach, man, you've got to be able to look at this and say, hey, man, I'm very pleased with this. Before we get going, too, my man DJ just said he just stopped in for a minute to hear opening words from the guys. Had knee replaced yesterday. Ooh. My mom had that, brother. We will be praying for you big time. I know how rough that can be. Stay strong, man. I'm glad you stepped in with us, though, here real quick and joined us. But my mom went through that. She had double knee replacement a few years ago. So, man, I know how rough that can be. So, glad you had a chance to watch the game today and watch a little bit of our show, man. But rest up, heal better, man. We'll be praying for you. But I think DJ had a good game to watch today, Vince. And that's the thing, big picture. If you're Marcus Freeman, I think you're pretty happy today because you've got a football team that's got a lot of competitiveness, and you've got a football team that's got a lot of speed, athleticism, and talent. I mean, that Sean Davis and I talked about that last week. Man, this is a really athletic, talented football team. And you weren't there last weekend, Vince, so this was your first chance to see what we were talking about. Like this team's got some athletes on it, man.
Well, and you got some gamers out there too, because there were spots in this game where they either A, had to pick up a hard-nosed first down, or B, knock down a pass in a big moment, or get a sack in a big, whatever the case may be. Guys were stepping up all over the place and making plays. Like, you hope that happens when you're in practice and you're drilling and you're doing all these different things. But this was about as game-like as it's going to get. There was about 20,000 people in the stands. So there was some, they had the PA announcer, they had the band. This is about as game-like as you're going to get in April, right? And so who are those gamers going to be? Who are those guys that are going to step up when it matters to make those plays? And you saw it across the board, right? You saw hard running by the running backs. You saw accurate throws and decisions by the quarterbacks. You saw, an interception. You saw a big breakup on fourth down. Yeah. You saw a forced fumble. You saw a sack. Like, you saw these guys stepping up when it mattered. And it wasn't the case where plays didn't really matter. Like, they were big moments in this game, in this quote unquote game. You know what I mean?
You remember how bad one offensive line got dominated last year?
Oh my gosh.
The blue team offensive line got destroyed last year.
Yes.
That happened. Like, there were plays where the D line won on both sides, but then moments where the two lines won. You're absolutely right. And it was a period where you're still working out the kinks. We're working out the kinks. The team's working out the kinks. The PA announcer's working out the kinks, because apparently Xavier Watts had a catch today, and apparently Emil Wagner had a sack today. And I was like, man, I looked at Vince and said, I wish Emil Wagner was 330 pounds, because he'd be a dude.
Yeah, right.
But no, it was overall, Vince. It was a good performance. It was one of those ones where you're like, look, this is what I think this team can be. They're not there yet because it's April. Nobody's there yet. If you peak in April, that's not good.
No.
But you come out of this game saying, man, you got talent everywhere. You do. You have some position battles that, honestly, it wasn't perfect. Right tackle, we'll get into. I'm as concerned about that position now as I was coming into the game. Quarterback was in the opposite end. Who do you like better? Steve, CJ, Kenny, Riley? They all made plays today. I mean,
so you can make an argument for all of them.
Yeah,
you know
there
what I mean?
So many good things that come out of this game, Vince. But you also saw today that this is not a finished product yet.
Right.
But when you're not a finished product and you can fly around the way that they did, make the plays that they did, I thought, we'll get into, like, certain players had great games, but then there's moments you're like, you got to clean up that run fit. You gotta handle this. And so perfect example. And the other thing too is, you got to remember about this game, folks, is anytime somebody makes a big play for Notre Dame player today, another Notre Dame player was on the receiving end of that.
Right.
That's just the nature of a game like this, right? So there's no way to have a perfect game. There just isn't. It's going to be, look, here's where it is. This is where you're at. Salty busting my chops. Riley made plays today. I was talking about the other three, but yes, actually, we saw Riley in pregame.
Yeah,
we saw him in pregame. Salty, he was on the money in pregame, baby.
And he was. But let's talk about that when we get to the quarterbacks, like what Riley was up to.
But my point was, there, whenever something good happens, there's a negative angle to it, because it means somebody got beat. You and I talked about this. The receivers did some really good things today, but I can't remember a single catch they made against Jaden Mickey, Christian Gray, or Xavier Watts, right? I mean, so, does that mean the receivers aren't that good, or does that mean the secondary is that good? Or, so there's all types of things that you can take away from it, that you're just, it's one's going to be good and one's going to be bad. But overall, there was so much good to come out of today's game. But you also come out of today's game saying, we're getting closer every day, but we're not there yet. But this was I feel this was a great way to finish the spring. I've watched some other spring games. If you're Notre Dame and you've watched some of the spring games I'm watched, you're feeling pretty good about where your team is right now on April 20th.
Absolutely.
Really good about where your team is on April 20th.
I felt really good about this game. Like, you and I were sitting there, we're watching the game, and we're critiquing, because that's what we do. But we're also sitting there like, oh, okay, like, that's a play. Oh, that's a playmaker, that kind of a thing. I don't remember, and I've been to a lot of spring games specifically for Notre Dame. I don't remember sitting back and thinking to myself, oh, this is good. Like, just having a really positive feeling leaving the game. There's definitely things that they need to work on. There's definitely things that won't win them games specifically in the season, right? Mistakes, things like that. But there were so many good things to be excited about.
But it's kind of like, this is the point, though, Vince. I love that you made that comment. Like, right? Like, offensively, you can't make the throw that Kenny made for the interception. Right? Like, and we'll talk about that. But at the same time, it was a great job of the defense bracketing all the receivers, getting their hands on the football, tipping in the air and making the pick. And that's kind of my point, right? Like you're looking like, oh man, you can't make that play on offense. But at the same time, you're like, that's the kind of play you have to make on defense, right? And that's the struggle when you're talking about a spring game, because you're going to look at one position and say, oh man, boy, you can't do that. But then you're like, oh, but that was pretty good on the other side as well. And you start getting excited about it. And that's what I like. And we saw Devin Ford, people in the chat are talking about Devin Ford. Devin Ford's playing safety in one drive and then comes right back on offense, and he's making plays on offense the next. And you're just like, dude, I love that kid.
I know,
I
right?
don't know if, I don't know where he's going to play or if he's just going to be, but man, you love kids like that. You've seen walk-ons out there making plays today. You got Justin Fisher running the ball. You've got, I think Alex Whitman had a catch today, I believe, right?
Julian had a catch.
Julian had a catch today.
A couple catches, actually.
So yeah, it just you kids out there battling, man. It was fun to watch.
It was
really fun to watch.
And the other thing that I liked was at the end of the game and at various parts of the game, like you talk about the competitiveness. I mean, it was blue versus white. Like they have done a great job with the culture at Notre Dame, where these guys are competing against each other and they're talking trash to each other, and they're in a good way, right? And they're really competing with each other. And then at the end, it's like, you get the blue team talking trash at the end after they won, specifically Jaden Mickey, shock, right? Because that's what he does. And he's over there and he's, but then they're all hugging and dabbing each other up at the end, and they're, singing the alma mater together. So like the culture that they have built is unique. I mean, it is unique. You can't fake the competitiveness that I saw today,
right,
and then the team aspect of it at the end. Like you can try to manipulate that and do all of these different things, but there was a true competitiveness. It was the whole iron sharpens iron thing, which I really liked, and that has not always been there at Notre Dame. It just hasn't been, and it's not something we talk about a lot, but I wanted to bring it up because it was very visual to me today, 9 stories up in the press box. Like you could see it. Mm-hmm. It was very clear, right? And it's a culmination of what we've seen at practice as well, with the way practice is set up and setting up those competitions and all of those different things. You could see it in the game today, which made it that much better of a game to watch. These guys weren't just going through the motions. You know what I mean? They wanted to win. Both teams wanted to win this game. You could see that the gold team was not happy when they lost that game.
Yeah.
And the blue team was ecstatic that they won that game. I mean, it was fun to watch, and it's only going to make these guys better moving forward as a team, as a whole, right? As a program. So I know that sounds a little cheesy, but I'm telling you, if you don't have it, it's tough to build a winning program.
Because Vince, we've seen Notre Dame not have it before. That's the point, right? Like we've seen a Notre Dame team not have that in the past.
Right.
And that's like you said, that's exactly the point of what you're trying to get at. And like I said, fun day. So what we'll do is we're gonna get into the offense first, and we'll get into the defense first or second, and we'll do all that. We'll hand out game balls. But before we do that, and Aiden Benami just threw a super chat in there before. Obviously, we're the only questions we'll really answer today are super chats. But I did want to bring this up from Hayden. He said our culture is on the up. R.I.P. Mama Mickey. That was also a really cool part of what Notre Dame did today.
Absolutely.
Was the recognition with the pregame warm-up shirts. And at first I was like, I forgot about it at first. And I saw some guys with purple shirts on, and I was like, what's going on? And then I remembered about that. So that was a really classy move by Notre Dame. And just it just speaks volumes about the type of young man Jaden Mickey is and the program he did, but also, the young man that Mr. and Mrs. Mickey raised. And, and also the kind of person she was, because, she was known around at Notre Dame. I mean, coaches knew her. Obviously, she was a big part of the recruiting process. So it was really good to see that and good to see Notre Dame honor her the way that she did. Because it was kind of hard to do that during the season, because she passed away, I think, like the night before the bowl game. It's like I think it was the night before the bowl game. And so it was kind of hard to really do anything to honor her and the family. And so I thought it was cool that Notre Dame did that today.
Right.
Yeah. So
for sure.
Yep. So that's a kind of good overview of the game, Vince. One of the better blue gold games we've seen in a while. Not just the competitiveness of the game, because we saw a couple years ago the one where Steve Angeli had the walk-off touchdown at the end. There's a couple big plays here and there, but overall, that was kind of a game. This was a game where you come out and you're like, wow, there's a lot of good things to see here. A lot of good things to see here from this game. Yep.
So do you want to go overall stats?
Cam Williams also was out today. So Robin Dennis just remember when we were going through all the list of guys we didn't see today. Completely forgot about Cam Williams. You know, the 5-star freshman wide receiver that I think the world of. So Robin, good reminder on that, man. So thank you for that. Just another really talented player we didn't get to see today, which just speaks volumes about how good this team could be because of all the talent we saw today. But then there's even more that's going to be there in the fall. A lot of reinforcements coming,
man.
Yeah,
crazy to think about that because I could very easily put an offense and a defense together with the guys that were just on the field and feel pretty confident about how they're going to play. Right? I could, but you add all those quote unquote reinforcements that are going to be here once the season starts and once they get into fall practice and all that. It's like, okay, this team has the potential to be special. So a lot of fun to watch for sure. You want to go into the stats of the game and then kind of break down the offense and the defense?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. So just kind of breaking it down, very, very balanced game. You had 28-21 score, advantage blue team. The gold offense had more first downs. They had 20 first downs to 18 for the blue team. Total offense, the blue team had 354 yards. The gold team had 345 yards. They both averaged 5.8 yards per play, which I thought was interesting. The gold team was better on third down. They went 7 of 13, also went 2 of 3 on fourth down, which is an interesting aspect of this game. I understand why they went for it as often as they did, but they had a lot of success with it. Yeah. I'm very curious if Marcus Freeman's going to have that in the back of his mind when they go into building this team in the fall. The blue team was more of the big play team. They went 5 of 13 on third down, but they went 4 of 5 on third down. And so that was an interesting part of it as well. And the big key of the game, Vince, this to me was the big one, turnovers. Mm-hmm. The gold team had 2 and the blue team had 0. The gold team had 3 and the blue team had 0. Wow. That was really the big key today. You had the Minchie interception, you had the Minchie fumble, and then you had the Jabron Payne fumble. And then Justin Fisher put one on the ground as well, but they recovered that. They said that he was down. They ruled him down.
Yeah, he was down.
So, yeah.
Jay Fish doesn't fumble, Brian.
Yep. He doesn't. So just looking at the team leaders, just statistically, Steve Angeli went 17 of 25 for 228 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was sacked 3 times. Kenny Minchie went 12 of 19 for 123 yards, 1 touchdown. Also had the interception. He was sacked once. He did the best job of all of them getting out of pressure. Kenny also had 40 yards rushing and a touchdown today. So he had touchdowns as well. So both those 2 returning quarterbacks both had 2 touchdowns each. CJ Carr had a very interesting stat line today, Vince, because he threw for both teams.
Right.
He went 7 of 10 for 66 yards for the blue. He went 8 of 13 for 99 yards for the gold, was sacked 3 times. While part of the gold team, 0 times as part of the blue team. So overall, CJ went 15 of 23 for 165 yards and a touchdown. And that was his performance today. Steve and CJ and Carr and Steve Angeli combined for minus 28 yards rushing. Kenny had 40 yards rushing. The leader in rushing today was actually Jabron Payne, who had 58 yards on 10 carries today. Next was Kenny Minchie with 40. Aeneas Williams had 39 yards on 10 carries. He ran a lot better than a guy that averaged 3.9 yards per carry, and we'll get into that a little bit here as we dive into this as well, Vince. But you look at the other rushers today. Jeremiah Love had 36 yards rushing on 7 carries, 5.1 per play. Justin Fisher had 23 yards on 7 carries. After moving over from tight end, he'd been a tight end last year. Devin Ford had 1 carry for 13 yards. Loved seeing that. And then Jaden Greathouse had 1 carry for minus 3 yards on a play where he was trying to throw the ball and wisely decided not to.
Yes, it was well covered downfield. Yes.
Micah Gilbert, Justin Fisher, Jeremiah Love, and Eli Raridon all tied for the team lead in catches with 5 apiece. Micah Gilbert had 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jeremiah Love and Eli Raridon both had 41 yards receiving. So Jeremiah had, would that be 77 yards total on 12 touches? So not a bad day's work for a guy that didn't play a ton today. You had Eli Raridan with 41 yards. Justin Fisher had 5 catches, but he had 12 yards. Deion Colsey had 4 catches for 58 yards. Jack Larson had a good day, 4 catches for 41 yards. KK Smith had 3 catches for 54 yards. Cooper Flanagan had 3 for 34. Jaden Greathouse had 3 for 38, but he was open a lot more than that. Chris Mitchell had 2 for 69 and a touchdown. You had 2 catches for Jack Polian for 19 yards. And then Alex Whitman, Devin Ford, and Henry Garrity all had a catch. And I'm telling you, Vince, Henry Garrity's going to be a player at Notre Dame at some point in time. Mitch Jeter had 2 punts for 39.5 yards. I thought that was very interesting that he punted twice. And then Eric Goyens had 2 punts, and he averaged 40 yards per punt on the day. They only had 1 field goal attempt. That was missed.
When was there punts? There were no punts.
That's what I'm just saying what they had it marked down as. Oh, they had a couple punts in the second half. Yeah. They let them just kick it a couple times. But I missed that. Yeah. They had 1 for sure, but I think that has more to do with, you know what, now that you think about it, I think they just put that in there because they did 40 yards every time.
Because they just moved it 40 yards. Yards. I was going to say.
You were correct. They did punt once. I thought they punted once in the second half, but I could be mistaken on that. And then looking down defensively, you had, let's get down to the defensive stats here. There's the defensive stats. Kahanu Kia had 12 tackles. He led the entire team today.
He was flying around the football. We'll get to that. But
I talked about that a little bit about him being a surprise yesterday, and I think people saw why today. Adon Schuler was next with 8 tackles. Jalen Sneed, Luke Talich, and Drake Bowen all had 7 tackles. Adon Schuler actually led the defense with 7 tackles, 7 solo tackles today. Okay. And then you had Ben Minnick had 5 tackles. Kingston Viliama Asa and Christian Gray both had 4 tackles on the day. Those were the leaders in tackles, and then everybody else had 3 or fewer. Sacks, tackles for loss, Kahanu Kia had 2. Jason Onye had 2 for the gold team. And then Jordan Patelho and Josh Burnham both had a tackle for loss in the game. There were 3 sacks in the game, 2 by Jason Onye, and one of them was ridiculously abusive to the offensive lineman. And then Jordan Patelho had 1. There were 5 tackles for loss on the other side of the ball. You had a half of 1 from Jalen Sneed. Boubacar Traore led the gold team with 1, or blue team with 1.5 tackles for loss. Sean Sevillano had a tackle for loss. RJ Oben, Bryce Young also had tackles for losses. They also their tackles for losses were sacks, as was Boubacar and Sean Sevillano. Forced fumbles. Bryce Young had a really impressive forced fumble, as did RJ Oben. Blue team pass breakups. Micah Bell had 2. Ben Minnick had 1, and Jalen Sneed had 1. There were 4 for the gold team. Adon Schuler, Kingston, Christian Gray, and Jaden Osbury all had breakups in the game. So that's the overview of the statistics from today's game, Vince. And it was again, a very back and forth affair. It was a fun game to watch.
Very balanced. Very balanced
game to watch.
For sure.
Yep.
All right, so let's jump into the offense. All right, and the way we're going to do this, so everybody knows, we're not going to say like, okay, the offense for the gold team, offense for the blue team. We're going to talk about the offense in general, right? So it's Notre Dame's offense and how the guys who played offense did. And so obviously we'll do how we normally do it, and we're going to go around the horn and go kind of position by position and talk about the offense. All right, and then we'll do the same thing with the defense. But we want to make sure that, of course, you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all the fun things. Make sure you hit that like button. There's some funky things going on, and make sure we hit that like button and combat the bots out there. All right, so hit that like button. Really, really appreciate that. But let's talk about this offense, Bryan, because we have to remember, at least I have to remember. I'll say it for me, for my own self. This is a new offense. I mean, Mike Denbrock came in. This is the 15th practice with this offense, right? And so I wasn't expecting miracles in this game, to be honest with you, but they moved the ball both on the ground and through the air. I think we saw some bright spots from all 3 quarterbacks. I thought the running backs ran hard. I mean, there were some bright spots offensively, and I thought that the command of the offense was better than I anticipated. I'll say that. But you want to start with the quarterbacks and
I think overall I did have a couple thoughts I wanted to share just on the offense overall. And a couple things that you guys noticed today. We did see the wide fade stuff a lot today. We saw they ran snag a ton today, which you guys saw. But we saw more of a focus on them trying to run the ball today than we did last Saturday.
Yeah.
You could tell last Saturday was about we're trying to work on the run game. We're trying to get our throwing game. We're trying to get the pass game going. Looking at it from the coaching standpoint, we're trying to get the pass game going. Let's focus on that and the pass pro and that type of stuff. Today was more balanced. We saw them focus a little bit more on the run game, and that was obviously a good thing. But I thought we saw the tempo mix it up a little bit. We saw the tempo kind of go back and forth a little bit, where they were changing the tempo. At times they would speed it up. And I'm not talking like in the 2-minute drill. I'm just talking about at times there were times in the game say, let's get moving a little bit, mix up the tempo, put a little stress on the defense. We saw a lot more personnel and formation diversity from Mike Denbrock today than he did at LSU last year because the makeup of the offense is so much different. He didn't have tight ends at LSU like he has at Notre Dame. He had one tight end really all year last year. That was Mason Taylor. He's a good football player, and they used him a ton, but they didn't have that second tight end Mason Taylor, I think, had almost 40 catches last year, but they didn't have that second tight end to be more of a 12 personnel team. And we saw a lot more of that today. We saw a lot of the motion and movements and things along those lines. So we got a little taste of what the Mike Denbrock offense is going to look like today. Not all of it. Trust me, there's a lot that we didn't see today, play calling wise, things that you and I have seen in practice, but just things that I know Mike Denbrock likes to run from breaking down film. But we saw a lot of the bread and butter, right? The slot fade concept. The double post concept. We saw some post snap switch stuff that he did, which is where one of the big plays came from. We saw the Y under off of, it was a read zone, and you pull it, and it's either you throw the Y under or you run it. We saw both. We saw them throw the Y under and run it today.
Saw both of them, yeah, from both teams. So, both two quarterbacks ran that one.
Yeah. Saw a ton of inside zone today, which is Mike Denbrock's bread and butter, but saw also a little bit of counter. We saw I'm gonna have to go watch it, but it looked like a quarterback buck sweep on the touchdown from Kenny Minchie, or the run from Kenny Minchie. It looked like a buck sweep to me. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it, but there was a lot of you guys all got a taste of. Now, for those of you that are premium members on the message board, you could see a lot of stuff today. Like, yep, that's that slot fade that that they're talking about, right? Like, that's inside zone. You guys could see that kind of stuff. But today you'll see some snag stuff, and so when I do my snag breakdown on the message board, I'll have LSU film, but I'm also going to, might even show a couple clips from today that where there was big plays from that. So the one thing we did see today, though, Vince, is we got a chance to see. Okay, I was glad that Mike Denbrock wasn't as vanilla as a lot of coaches tend to be.
Sure,
and I think that's smart to do. He may not be that way next year when there's a year under his belt, but I thought it was important to take advantage of this opportunity to go out there and compete while you're still, your players are still in a position where they're still learning the offense. This is another opportunity to get better that you need more than you might need before. And so, like, defensively, we didn't see as much blitzing today as we normally do. Let's be honest about that. We saw some, especially on 3rd and 4th down, but not as much in base situations. And so, but offensively, it was you got a taste of what Mike Denbrock's offense is going to look like today, which was
more than I thought. It's more than I thought we were going to see. I'll be honest with you. We saw a lot of the same pass concepts, but we saw them out of different alignments, and we saw them get
and that's partly what Denbrock does. I mean,
for sure. 100%.
He's not going to run a million plays. It's like, we're going to run this out of a lot of different looks and a lot of different ways. And yeah,
I like the fact that he was doing that, though, because you got a lot of young guys, a lot of young receivers that were out there. And what I also like to see were all three quarterbacks at one point or another were directing traffic pre-snap. Hey, man, you got to widen out. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to, make sure that you're in the right spot. No, get over here. Like, I feel like the command of the offense from the quarterback position is at a good place coming out of spring. I'm not saying they're perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I like the control that it felt like that they had over the offense, and they were able to kind of, because that's what you want your quarterback. You want your quarterback to know what everybody's supposed to be doing on any given play. And there was one point where, this is an example where Kenny Minchie, they were going to throw kind of a swing pass to Justin Fisher. And that was the play. It wasn't check down. That was the play. And he was trying to get the wide receiver to get out more and split out more so that the defender is taken out more. And so that they've got that guy in space. And so that when he gets the ball outside, you're, blocking in space as opposed to more of a condensed box. So, he knew where that play was going to go. He knew what he wanted to see from those guys up front. So it was just I like the command that those guys had at this point in the spring. A lot more to learn, a lot more to do, obviously, but only 15 practices under their belts, 14 and a half or so at the time, right? They had control of what they were attempting to do offensively. And I think that's a great spot to be in at this point in the offseason.
Let's talk about the quarterbacks, Vince.
Okie dokie.
We could tease you all and do the quarterbacks at the end.
We could.
But I'm in a good mood, and I think you guys want to talk about it. Let's just say this first and foremost. I can warn you guys all I want about don't get on Team, don't be Team Angeli or Team Minchie or Team Carr or Team Leonard. Like they all play for Notre Dame. And we'll have a lot to say about what we liked and didn't like from each quarterback. But what you saw today was all three of these kids can play. Now, I have my feelings on where I would rank the three of them.
Me too.
I have my feelings on what the floor and the ceiling is, and Vince and I talked about that. And when we get into the offseason, we'll have a more further conversation about the big picture. But we're going to focus on today. And what we saw today, not the implications of today. That'll come. You guys know we're going to have hundreds of shows between now and fall camp. We'll have plenty of time to get to that. We're going to focus on what we saw today. And so what you saw today are all three of these kids can make plays in different ways, legs and arm, some more so with their legs than others. But legs and arms, you saw. You also saw that they're all still three works in progress as well, Vince. They all had read mistakes that we didn't like. Some guys just, like Steve Angeli just won't read past the first guy. Kenny forced a couple balls. CJ had some late reads, on a couple throws where he actually went to the third guy, but he was a little late with it. CJ took a sack. He probably shouldn't have taken a sack. Freeman got on him that one time about getting out of the pocket. Steve had some big missed opportunities. Kenny with the turnover. You just can't have that happen. So they're all works in progress. But what you guys saw today is these kids can flat out sling the football to some degree. They're all good football players. And it just speaks volumes to, as before we get into each kid, that this quarterback room is loaded. And guys, the best quarterback they have for 2024 didn't play today.
Correct.
And you and I got to see him sling the ball around a little bit in pregame, but this quarterback room is absolutely loaded. Absolutely loaded. You should be able to win 10 games next year with any of these kids.
Agreed.
In my opinion. You just got to keep coaching them up and get them ready to go. But they all stated their case to say, hey, I deserve to still be in this conversation when we get to fall camp. I think all three of them made a case for that today. That's the only big picture thing that I'll say. I have my opinion on who is the best and all that.
Sure.
But all three of those kids stepped up. And there was a point in time, Vince, where, you and I looked and said Kenny was catching fire and CJ was catching fire and Steve was pressing. Like he was visibly pressing and making mistakes. But you know what he did right on the very next series? We said that. He calmed down. He started the series off poorly, calmed down. His teammates rallied him, got a first down, but then he settled in and went and made some really good throws. And that was good to see. And so you saw all three of these kids went out there and competed. Kenny Minchie had a rough first half. He was getting pressured. He had the turnover. He had 2 turnovers in the first half. And then so what does Kenny do coming into the third quarter? He's coming out throwing dimes. Like the mistakes didn't faze him at all.
Right.
He just came out and was like, all right, touchdown, and you want to see that. You saw 3 kids that whatever you think about who's the best, what you saw today is you saw 3 kids that have some moxie to them. And that's the thing that you can't take away from any of them. They all deserve credit for that. Now, again, I have feelings on who played the best today or who showed me the most things that mean something for the fall today. But they all showed me some moxie. I mean, one team went 2 of 3 on fourth down. The other went 4 or 5 on fourth down. And I think with one exception, maybe 2, they were all throws. And so these kids showed us a little something today, all 3 of them. And we'll get into specifics. And some of you are going to like our analysis of certain players. Some of you won't because you guys are just going to be team whoever you like. And that's totally cool. It is what it is. Fine. That's part of being a fan. But I just think we all need to sit back for a minute before we get into specifics of each kid and say, these kids can play.
They got
all
a deep
3
room.
Of these kids can play.
Right.
You can win 10 games next year with all 3 of the kids that we saw today.
Right. And
that's a great place to be. Great place to be. And Notre Dame hasn't been there in a while. It's been a while. that they've been in a place like that. And I don't even know if I'm trying to think of it, because even like 2014, where you had Everett Golson and Malik Zaire, Deshaun Kaiser wasn't ready to lead that year the way that CJ Carr is right now as a freshman. You go to 2015, where you had Malik and Deshaun, but I don't think Brandon Wimbush was ready to lead as a freshman the way that CJ Carr is right now. And we're not even getting into the fact that we're going to have Riley Leonard as part of this conversation in the fall. We're just talking about the three we saw today.
Right.
That's the key. These kids all battled, competed, and showed poise, Vince.
Yeah.
And they all had to rally back from mistakes, and they all did it. And that, to me, more than anything, was my biggest takeaway. They all had really bad plays that they had to then respond to, and they all did.
I do want to bring up one item before we jump into the analysis of the three guys that actually played. Riley Leonard in pregame was in full pads, right? And we're not giving anything away because fans were in the stands as well, right? But he was in full pads going through warmups, and he was rolling out, and he was, throwing the ball and doing all these different things. And then when the team came out for the actual game itself, he was in shorts and a t-shirt, and he was standing behind the offense and doing what he was doing, I believe, during last Saturday's scrimmage and just kind of doing the mental rep thing. I saw him kind of mirroring the quarterback and doing some different things, going through the reads and things like that. But he was in full gear during pregame. He was not limited during pregame. I want to stress that it's pregame, right? There's no live guys coming at you or anything like that. But he was rolling out just like the other quarterbacks were doing. He was getting his drops. He was doing all the different things that the other quarterbacks were doing. But then when the game started, he was obviously in street clothes. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And he had on the brace, right? The Tyco, I think, brace or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to call it.
So he had the brace on, but he was stepping into his throws. I mean, and that's his plant foot, is his right ankle. So he was stepping into throws, and he had some zip on the ball, and I was impressed with, the way his arm looked, because I didn't see him obviously last Saturday, and so being able to see him this Saturday and just kind of get some oomph on those throws, I was impressed. Right, I was surprised he was in full gear, helmet, shoulder pads, the whole deal. So just wanted to throw that out there so people understood, because I don't know if they put that on the TV, broadcast or what have you. But that was Riley Leonard's part of it. So that was his day was done after warmups. But he's still progressing, I'm guessing, on time.
With the next three events, let's go by seniority.
Okay.
We'll talk with each. We'll go Steve, Kenny, and then CJ. So we'll
Perfect.
go from a seniority standpoint.
Perfect.
Why don't you go ahead and kick us off, talk about what you saw. What did you like from Steve today? What were some of the concerns that you saw, or some of the issues that Steve had today? Let's kick it off with him.
So Steve was the quarterback of the blue team, first pick in the draft, got his picture with the coach, right? And so he led the
rewarded him with the game-winning touchdown at the end. So there you go.
There you go. Right. So what he did well, you kind of already talked about, right? He didn't look great early and then responded. He responded, and his best throw of the day, in my opinion, was, and somebody put it in the chat earlier before I shut it off. His best throw was that fourth down throw, where he threw it to Greathouse and put it up where only Greathouse could get it, and pulled it down for the first down to ice the game, right? That was the fourth down. There was still time on the clock. If they don't convert that, there's still time on the clock for CJ Carr or Kenny Minchie, whoever would have quarterbacked the gold team, to go down and put a score on the board to try to tie it up or what have you, right? That was a moxie play, man. Like that play was a serious play by Steve Angeli. And so he made some plays today. There's no doubt about it. He did not start out the game in a very positive manner. Okay. His first couple of series, in my opinion, he was checking down, and he wasn't really going through his reads completely. If his first read wasn't there, he was checking down. Good throws to check down most of the time. There was one where, I think it was in the second half, where he was checking down, and it was the right read, actually, to check down to Jeremiah Love, but it was a bad throw. It's like, you got to give Jeremiah Love an opportunity to make a play with the football in his hands, because Jeremiah Love was wide open and with room to run. Just put it there and let him go out and make a play. So I did not like the way he was not really going through his reads and some different things. And that was a little bit frustrating early on. It was a little bit of confirmation bias for me. And I was like, I didn't like it, right? But then he bounced back in the second half because he was only in for a couple of series, right, Brian? Before CJ Carr came in and was running with the blue team. So he's only in for a couple of series, and then he didn't come back in until the second half. And the second half, he started to settle down a little bit more and did a little bit better with what he wanted to do.
A perfect example, Vince, is the play you're talking about. It was in the third quarter, and it was a 2nd and 12. And like, I thought there was another route he could have gone to. He threw the check down to Jeremiah. I'm fine with that. But he kind of rushed it. His footwork got a little bit choppy, and he kind of threw it, and Jeremiah catches it and falls down. Well, that puts you in a 3rd and 11 situation. Now, you were able to get out of it because on the next play, you threw another ball 2 yards down the field that Jeremiah Love catches, makes people miss, and turns it into a 32-yard gain.
Yeah.
And so your teammate bailed you out. That's fact. Teammate bailed you out. But what was the 4th down throw you're talking about to Jaden Greathouse?
The very last play,
it was the same drive.
Right.
So, yes, Steve made a big mistake that he's got to get better at. But that's what I was saying earlier is he was not playing well up to that point in time in the second half. He really wasn't. He was struggling in the second half up to that point in time. But then his teammate bails him out, but then he gets put into a 4th and 6 situation, and he goes out there and makes the play on 4th and 6. And then on the next play as well, like he shows poise and patience. He sees the defense bailing, so he could have rushed the throw to Jack Larson, but he waited, let Jack clear the defense, then threw the ball to Jack, and you get a 19-yard gain. So that's kind of the give and take you have with Steve. Is
right.
There's just going to be too many times where he just locks into that first read. And as a junior, you can't be there. And sometimes it's even the right read, but championship quarterbacks sometimes don't make the right read because they're trying to make the bigger play in the proper way.
Right.
And there's just times where good defenses can bait you into the right read all the time, and it's a short gain. Sometimes you got to be willing to kind of counterpoint that. And Steve just doesn't do that. He just doesn't do that whole thing where I'm going to freeze this guy to bring it back here. There was a particular play that I'll mention. There was a play where Jaden Alsbury did about as good of a job as an outside linebacker can do, playing the deep end and the flat route both at the same time. I mean, it was excellent by Jaden Alsbury. But as a quarterback, as a junior quarterback, you've got to look to that slide with your eyes and try to get Jaden Alsbury to go and then bang that in cut behind. Even the way Jaden Alsbury played it, he still needs to hit that in cut because throw it open and let the guy run into it. We saw CJ Carr do that last week. Right. And so Steve kind of took the check down and the easy play. Those are the things he still has to learn. Is I got to know when to make the play. Because even today, the big throws he made were all his first read. The 4th and 6th throw to Greathouse, it was his primary read. And first read doesn't mean that he's reading one receiver. It's I have one read. If he goes here, I throw here. If he goes there, I throw there. So he may get to the second target, but it's the second target as part of the first read. Does that make sense? So like when you're running a snag concept, and I'll break this down for the premium members, but essentially what you have, it's a three route concept. You're going to have the outside guy is going to run what you call a snag route. He's going to kind of work over number 2, find an opening in the zone. Number 2 is going to run a corner route, and then a back or a number 3 receiver is going to run a quick slide route. So you've got kind of a triangle concept, high-low. And with Steve, he will basically kind of lock in on that first read and just immediately take something. And sometimes it works. Right. But then other times it's like, dude, if you can just lock your eyes on that guy, hold him, bang that corner out over top, right? Like that's the throw to make. And that's going to be part of Steve's learning process. But you're kind of like, dude, you're a junior now. You ran that concept last year at Notre Dame. This isn't a new concept at Notre Dame. Den Brock loves it, but Jared Parker ran it a decent amount too. And Tommy Reese ran it. So you've been running this play for 3 years. those are the kind of things that's the next step that Steve's going to have to get to based on today. There were just too many times that we saw today, Vince, where, like I got these notes right here, like 9 open on the option, right? And miss 9 up the seam, 19 open, post is open. How many times did I write that down today, Vince, where I'm like, dude, 19 open, where you're throwing this route, but you're not making the right pre-snap read to say, hey, this is where I need to get to. So that to me is where,
and
he's going to have to evolve as a player.
Right. And he didn't look comfortable. I'll say it. He didn't look comfortable early. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like the times that you're talking about where, with the reads, he just didn't look comfortable. He just wanted to get rid of the ball. Right. And if it wasn't there, kind of not happy feet necessarily, but just like, I got to get rid of it. I got to get rid of it. Like it just didn't
still sped up a lot for him.
Yeah.
It's still sped up for him. Yeah.
Right. It just didn't feel comfortable.
But that's what I liked about what we saw from him later is he did look a little bit more calm in the pocket. Agreed. But even then, he never went past his first read.
Right.
That's the issue.
And that's a problem. I mean, it's something they're going to have to work on.
It limits you a little bit as a quarterback. It limits you a little bit as a quarterback because you're just going to need to make some of those plays sometimes. It's why Dabo Swinney was completely fine with Deshaun Watson throwing 17 picks in 2016. And the media would just lose their minds every time he threw an interception. But Dabo's like, yes, but did you see those 4 throws he made over here? If I beat that out of him, then we don't get that helped us win the football game. Now, I'm not saying you're okay with Steve throwing interceptions, but what I am saying is the other 2 younger kids showed me a little bit more, I'm going to fit this sucker in there.
Yeah.
And Steve needs a little bit more of that.
Right.
And that's part of that, honestly, Vince, is an experience thing. I mean, CJ Carr threw for almost as many yards as a senior in high school as Steve Angeli's thrown his entire career of playing football at the high school and college level. I mean, so even though he's a junior, he hasn't played a ton of football where he's had to make those reads. So that's still part of the evolution for Steve Angeli because it's not so much a physical limitation. He doesn't have the same arm talent the other guys have, but he showed he can make some throws. I mean, he showed the deep ball to Jordan Faison in the bowl game that he can make that throw, but he's going to have to make some of those plays a little bit more. But again, he had some mistakes. He was stressed at times. You could see him visibly forcing things because of how well Kenny and CJ were playing.
Absolutely.
But what did he do? After I looked at you and made that analysis of he's pressing. Mm-hmm. He's seeing what CJ and Kenny are doing and he's pressing. He threw 2 touchdown passes after that. Or no, he didn't. He threw 1 touchdown. He led the offense on 2 touchdown drives after that. Right. Because he threw the ball to Jack Larson. They got inside, but it's actually Jeremiah Love that scored the touchdown. So excuse me. He led 2 touchdown drives after that. And that's the thing you love about Steve is he just he doesn't process information the way that I want as a quarterback, but the kid is got tons of I was going to say something I shouldn't say on a show. He's got lots of guts and lots of moxie and lots of confidence. Now he just has to turn that confidence into being willing to maybe take some more shots.
Right.
And that's where he's going to have to get to. But the kid, look, here's the thing Steve Angeli's not going to get into a game and just fold. Agreed. He's not going to mentally and emotionally fold. He's not. And there's something to be said about that. I can work with that as a coach. If I can run the football and play great defense, I can win a lot of football games with a kid like Steve Angeli. Because I know when the game's on the line, he's not going to fold. He's not going to just get overwhelmed by the moment and fold. He's not.
The only, just to play devil's advocate to your statement, the only thing that worried me was the fact that he was pressing because of the way the other 2 quarterbacks were playing.
But I think that happens to the best of quarterbacks.
I'm just saying, but what worries me about that is, okay, you're playing in a big game, you get down, and is that too much pressure? How are you going to respond to that? Are you going to press and then make another mistake?
But quarterbacks are going to press and do that sometimes. It's what do you do in response to it? And your point is completely valid, Vince, because people say, well, it's not like that in a game. Yeah, it is, because people say, well, quarterbacks don't play against each other. Yes, they do.
Oh, yeah, they do.
Yes, they do. No, Tom Brady is not throwing against Peyton Manning on defense. Right. But trust me,
Yeah.
These guys are watching what the other guy's doing because they know, man, this guy's going to bring it. I can't afford to make
a
this
mistake.
kind of mistake.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
But what I'll say about Steve is, again, Vince, you are correct. He can't press like that. It does happen. No quarterback can press like that. But what did he do in response? Yes, teammates had to bail him out a little bit. But what did he do in response? He makes the 4th and 6 throw. He comes back and makes, yes, it was underthrown a little bit, but he also knew that they had, because they ran a stop and go, and he knew the corner was beat. So you and I talked, I was going to go back and look at that play. I looked at that play. Pass. So no, the guy hadn't fallen down yet, but they ran a stop and go, and he saw the corner lunging as he's getting torched by, so that's why he you could watch Steve, he's kind of laid it up there. He wasn't trying to lead him like this. He was just get it out there before the safety can get over.
Gotcha.
So I understood, like, okay, yeah, you don't want to underthrow it like that. But I believe Steve saw the corner was torched, even though the guy hadn't fallen down yet. And so, that's kind of what – but you still don't want to underthrow it too much because you want to make sure your receiver can catch it and run for a touchdown, which I thought for the most part he did. He didn't make him, like, completely wait for it. So that's the thing with Steve is you just have to understand he showed today why you want a kid like him on your football team. Because
he's a valuable person.
You have to bring him off the bench in a game. He's not going to be overwhelmed by the moment. Right. He's going to go out there and compete his butt off. You just need to now teach him the things. Because I don't think Steve's issue with not going past his first read is out of fear of making a mistake. I just don't think he's comfortable with it.
Sure.
I just don't think it's something he has a ton of experience doing in live situations. Again, this is a kid that threw, as a senior in high school, threw for 1,700 yards, and as a junior in high school, and this isn't all his fault because his junior year was the COVID year. Only played like 5 or 6 games. Didn't even throw for 1,000 yards. So he just doesn't have the same experience as a guy like C.J. Carr, who had to carry his high school football team the last 3 years. Or a guy like Kenny Minchie, who was Kenny Minchie threw more yards as a junior, I believe, than Steve Angeli has in his career. That's the thing. So to me, it's an experience thing. Where with Ian Book, I just felt Ian didn't process information well, but Ian just didn't have that. He needed to be in a games on the line setting before Ian would finally let the ball loose. Right? That's what was so frustrating. I think with Steve, it's more so about he's just not comfortable with it yet.
Okay.
Which means I think that can be coached out of him. Now, the problem is, are you going to have time to learn that?
Because you got guys nipping at your heels.
Yeah. Yes, you do. Let's talk about Kenny next. Yeah.
I want to ask you a question first before we turn the page. No, that's okay. And you can tell me if I'm crazy, which is an absolute possibility. Would you say that there's a comparison between the way you just described Steve Angeli? Like, he's a guy you want on your team. He's a guy you can plug in, you can win games with. He just might not be your starter at this moment. Can you make the comparison that he's the Clarence Lewis of the offense? He's going to be solid when you put him in there, but maybe he's not your starter. Does that make sense?
Or your star.
Yeah, he's a guy that you want on that team, though. Yeah. He's a guy that's a very valuable piece to your team.
Somebody in the chat said, he's a Greg McElroy, AJ McCarron type. And I would say, I think AJ McCarron had more physical tools, but I think Greg McElroy is a great comparison. Okay. Greg McElroy won a national championship. Jacob Coker in 2015 at Alabama is another example. These guys were not big-time playmakers, but they weren't going to get you beat.
Right.
And that's the thing about the way that Steve plays. Steve's not going to necessarily get you beat. What I liked about today, because I was at the game last week, he didn't get baited into some of the mistakes he got into last week.
Learned.
So he bounced back from that. Yeah. That's the thing, Vince. It's like, yes, he played poorly here, but he bounced back and did it. So I just feel like he's a guy that you can get to a certain point with.
Yeah.
But he's not the kind of guy that's going to put a team on his shoulders and say, I got this for 60 minutes. He may be able to do it in a drive or off the bench or things like that. But, the Clarence Lewis example, I think, is a fair one because Clarence is a smart kid, all those things. He just didn't have quite the physical gifts that maybe some other guys had. Because if Clarence Lewis was as athletic as a guy like Christian Gray, he'd be a much better player. To me, there's a big difference between Clarence Lewis and Ramon Henderson. Like, Ramon has all the physical gifts. He just doesn't have football instincts. Clarence does. Right. Clarence just doesn't run well enough. That's just the same with DJ Brown. I think that actually might be a better example. Steve Angeli's like the DJ Brown of your offense.
Okay.
Where you love the kid, you're glad you have him on your team, you want him in the trenches with you, you want him in that foxhole with you, but at the end of the day, is he going to be that guy that
can put you over the top?
Yeah, I don't know, and I think today was sort of another example of why I feel that way. But today was also an example of why he has supporters.
Sure, absolutely.
Because he will go out there and compete his butt off,
made plays when he needed to,
make plays when he needs to, and not get overwhelmed by the moment. And you understand it,
right?
But you have to be able to balance those two things when you see a performance like today from Steve. You can't, because like some people are going to write off, the fact he went 17 of 25 for 213 yards, 228 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a 62-yard throw at the end of the game. I'm not going to dismiss that. I'm not going to write that off. That's a good day's work.
Sure.
But as a quarterback's coach and the guy that played the position, there's a lot of things I look at and say, those are things that a junior has to be doing. And he's not. And he didn't do it last week, and he didn't do it this week, and he didn't do it last year. I mean, you go back and look at the throws he made against Oregon State. They were all his first read.
Right.
Same thing.
Absolutely.
Same thing. And that's the thing he's going to have to get to.
For sure.
Yeah. But if you put a good enough of talent around him, you can win a lot of games with that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Just like we said, getting the ball to Jeremiah Love in space. He didn't make a great throw the first time. He fell down. And then the very next play, he gets to Jeremiah Love on a 3-yard pass and ends up being a 37-yard gain.
But he got it to him quick.
Right. Exactly.
But that's the thing is when the first read's there, Steve's going to get that sucker out quick and give his guys a chance to make a play. I think he threw the ball to Deion Colsey also on 3rd down. Wasn't it him that did that? Let me find here. So he threw a stop route to Deion, and that allowed Deion to go pick up a 3rd down. I thought that was Steve. Was I mistaken on that? Let me see here. It was a 3rd and 9. No, that was CJ. Sorry, CJ made that throw. There was a play where he threw the ball to Deion Colsey. I thought it was him that threw the ball. Maybe it was CJ, but I thought he had a 3rd down. Yes, it was on the second drive. He threw that little quick snag to Deion, but he got it out so quickly. It was his first read. He hit that snag so quickly that allowed, and Deion did a great job of catching it and immediately getting to the sticks because Deion knew the situation. It's 3rd and long, and it's 3rd and 11, and I just caught the ball 6 yards down the field. I gotta go.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if Steve waits, then the defense collapses on Deion, and he gets caught 2, 3, 4 yards short of the sticks.
Right.
And that was the deal.
All right, let's talk about the next guy on the seniority list, and that would be Kenny Minchey. And Kenny was the first quarterback for the Gold team. So he got first stab at the Gold team and had the entire first half. Yeah, he had the whole first half. I thought that he relied on his legs a little bit early and did some good things, honestly, with his legs. And then he was able to kind of use his arm a little bit later in the game and threw just an absolute beauty of a ball to Micah Gilbert for that touchdown. I mean, he could not have placed it in his hands any better than he did. Great route also by Micah Gilbert, but just a great throw.
We'll talk a lot about the way Micah
100%
played that ball for sure.
100%. But Kenny, I thought once he got comfortable in the game, he started trusting his arm a little bit more. Like his instinct is to use his legs, and he's really good at it. Don't get me wrong. He's really
what's
good at
funny is that's not how he was in high school.
Oh, interesting.
Like, because he was that like Kenny could make plays with his legs in high school. There's no doubt, but he was a guy that would move around looking to throw.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't this guy in high school. And I wonder, is he trying to separate himself and show because he is a good athlete.
He's got something different. Yeah.
Yeah. But one of the things I loved about Kenny in high school was he was a guy that when he would run around, he would run around, but he'd be looking down the field and saying, hey, where am I going to throw the football?
Yeah.
But, and look, his numbers to me should have been better than they were. He had, first drive of the game, 3rd and 7. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Kenny tried to make a throw that I just don't know that I've ever seen Steve Angeli even try to make. And it was a curl route in between 3 guys. The corner was coming in this way. Drake Bowen is screaming out to get underneath the curl. He's playing hook curl from the mic position. And Kenny sees that, and he knows, I got to get this sucker out quick and with some gas. and he did, and Micah dropped it, right? So he had a couple balls like that as well. And sometimes I wonder, like, did that lead Kenny to say, hey, I kind of got to do this on my own? Because he did have a couple plays where I didn't think his teammates necessarily helped him out the way that maybe Steve was getting helped out.
Sure.
And so, but you can't be that way, right? Like if a guy drops a ball, you got to come right back to him. But it was good to see him make some of those plays. He made some really impressive throws today. But there, like Steve, there was a couple misses that he had there. There was the one play where he scrambled for 12 yards. He's got the post. He's got to take it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with Kenny is Kenny on the intermediate to short stuff is willing to pull the trigger a little bit, but he's just not quite ready to put. In the first half, he was just not quite ready to pull it over the middle. Now, the second half, we saw him pull it and throw those deep balls, but those post throws, he's going to have to, because I've seen him do this in practice a couple times too. Dude, you got that one-on-one in the post. You got to know where to put that ball away from the defense. And that's part of what Kenny's going to have to learn. But, Vince, the thing is, though, but he was making plays with his legs today. He was. I mean, there were some clutch moments today where he went out and made plays with his legs and got the defense going and was able to move the chains. But what we're also seeing from Kenny is there's some inconsistency from him from a processing standpoint. There's a couple times where the defense was able to show one thing pre-snap, drop to something different, and it jacked him up. That's what happened on the interception. They ran their slot fade concept, and the defense did a great job of Jaden Mickey did such a good job of sitting on that corner until he felt Jaden Osbury was ready to take it, and then he came up underneath the slot fade. And Kenny was thinking he was going to throw the slot fade, and then Jaden Mickey took it away, and the safety took it away, and then he tries to force a ball on the Y option, but the other linebacker had kind of gotten over there and taken that away, and then they tip the ball up, and it gets picked off. Like, he's going to have to learn it's third down. I don't mind an interception on third and 13. I don't mind but I mind an interception that happens 10 yards down the field.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if he tries to fit a slot fade in there and it gets picked off at the 23-yard line, it's as good of a punt.
Right.
If it's incomplete and you take that shot, then we're putting the ball away. But you can't make that mistake. And those are parts of the things that Kenny's going to have to work through, and that'll happen. But you also saw him today, Vince, as well, show an understanding of, hey, when you make that read and you know that you've got a small window, you've got to get that ball out quickly. And Kenny had 3 or 4 window throws today, Vince, that I thought were really good. Like really good. He hit a slant route to KK Smith. That was a real tight window throw. He made the curl route to Micah Gilbert. That was a tight window throw. And that go route, like the first deep ball he hit was wide open. It was blown coverage. And he read it correctly.
Right.
So they ran a post-snap switch. And so Micah Gilbert worked inside and got up the seam. KK Smith worked off his tail and got vertical. And the corner didn't pass it off. The corner squeezed down on Micah Gilbert. And Kenny saw it immediately and got the ball out right now. Great read. He saw the corner was eyes on the inside slot, and he knew the safety couldn't get over top of that. He hit it right now. Boom. Great read. And then he saw the next one. He had a one-on-one outside, and he drops a perfect dime on the outside to Micah Gilbert.
No, my.
So
yes.
when CJ knows when Kenny knows where he wants to go with the ball and he throws with conviction, it is a thing of beauty. It is as pretty as you're going to see. I mean, and you guys saw that today. When Kenny knows where to go and he throws with confidence, he can throw some dimes. And it wasn't just those 2 throws. It was the 3rd and 7 that was dropped by Micah Gilbert. That's a big-time throw. Micah Gilbert's got to make that play. And
that was the one early in the game, right? That was the
first
very
drive.
early one. Yeah,
first drive. 3rd and 7, man. And he's like, hey, we got to get a first down.
And he squeezed that in, too, because there was defenders coming from both directions, and that ball got there right beforehand. It was a great throw. And I think Micah Gilbert just kind of saw the guy coming out of the corner of his eye and just took his eyes off the ball or whatever. But that was a heck of a throw. I mean, that was a heck of a throw early on in the game as well. So I was like, okay, Kenny, all right, here we go. And I think I don't know if that shook his confidence at all because of that drop, but then he started kind of relying on his legs a little bit more in the first half.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep. But on the touchdown drive he had, Vince, you saw him more willing to get the ball out quick. I mean, so you're looking at it. He runs a snag slide that they on 1st and 10 that goes for nothing. He kind of pressured it. And then he had a 1st and 10. He hit a really quick stop route to Jack Polian over the middle. Like he had to fit that ball in tight. Jack was covered pretty well.
Yes.
He put the ball away from the defender. Jack made a really good catch of it. Like that was a good route, good catch by Jack Polian and a good job by the defense, but it's just better job by the offense. Then he hits the Y under. And I'll break this down later, but basically they're running an inside zone. And instead of the tight end blocking backside, he goes out in the flats. And so the quarterback reads it. If the guy crashes down, it's just like a pull. He gets outside. And if the tight end has leverage to the outside, you throw it. If he doesn't have leverage, you go, and then keep. And the first time they ran it, Kenny threw it to the tight end, and they gained 11 yards. And then they had an inside zone, and then he had they finished the drive off. But like his legs also had some impact on that drive. Like he had that scramble for 15 yards. I mean, so he was able to do that. And then of course he has they ran a 2nd and 1 zone read, and he keeps it and picks up the first down. So what I liked was that Kenny just wasn't feeling it in the first half for a while there, throwing the football.
Right.
But he showed that, hey, I don't have to be feeling it to make plays. And then as he got more comfortable as a thrower and he got into a better rhythm as a thrower, then he started making more plays with his arm. But you can't do that if you don't have that running ability. As much as I like Steve, Kenny's a better athlete.
For sure.
Kenny's a more natural runner than Steve is. And so you saw those deals today, and that's what makes Kenny dangerous, is because he does have that ability to move the chains, get out of the pocket. Now, he also at times didn't feel the edge pressure the way that he needs to feel the edge pressure. That's something Kenny's going to have to work on. You're going to have a better sense of that backside, dudes coming down on you, because he had the one strip sack, but then there was another time that I don't think he felt that outside pressure. And he ended up stepping up into it. But I think he stepped into it because of what he saw to his face, not because of what came behind him. So that's another aspect of it. But Vince, I'm going to tell you right now, man, when Kenny throws with conviction, it is an absolute thing of beauty. And we saw that today. Like, look, this kid's still young. He's still learning. This is a kid that missed a chunk of his senior year because of an injury. But what you guys saw today, that when Kenny is comfortable with what he's seeing, he can lead this offense. I mean, he led the offense on 2 touchdown drives as well today.
He's a threat.
Yeah.
And I also like the fact, and you mentioned it early on when we were talking about big picture or whatever, but, when they got down to the goal line, they're not afraid to put the ball in his hands and let him run the football. It was the quarterback buck sweep, into the end zone. I mean, he had to be a patient runner on that, by the way.
And I didn't know that he had that in him.
Right. He had to be a patient runner on that. He had to kind of let the block set up in front of him and then just kind of lower his shoulder and get in there. Right. I mean, that's not the easiest thing to do, especially if you're not used to being a power running quarterback, which he's not. I mean, that wasn't his game, obviously, in high school. And so I like the fact that they're kind of expanding his game a little bit down around the goal line. That was good. And obviously we'll talk about the offensive line here in a second on that particular play. But I thought that run was very indicative of how he's growing as a runner with the football in his hands, which is a nice piece for Kenny.
I didn't know that he had that, Vince. That's the thing. I'll say it again. Like, we're talking about the impact he made today as a runner, but I always felt Kenny was more of a use his athleticism for the passing game kind of guy.
Sure.
And so to see that,
get out of trouble.
Okay. There's a little bit more there than I thought he had.
Right.
And there's a couple times I thought he was going to slide, and he just kept going.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, bro, you got 15 yards. I thought he was going to slide at 7, And so again, he's a work in progress.
Absolutely.
He too is not as sharp as I want him to be getting to that second and third progression. Okay, he's going to have to get better there. He's just more of a, if I don't feel it, I'm getting out. And again, you've got the arm talent to hang in there and bang that backside dig.
Right.
You've got the arm talent to bang that front side post. Take it. Don't be afraid to take it, because if you're going to win this job, if you're going to beat out CJ Carr, And if you're going to beat out Steve Angeli and then win this starting job next year, and you're going to have to, those are the throws that you need to make. You can make them, and that's the thing. My advice to CJ and Kenny would both be, don't lose the job because of the throws you weren't willing to make.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that. You don't want to be that guy. You have the arm talent to do it. Take those chances. That's what the coaches want to see. Take those chances. As long as, again, I don't even count as a chance. It's like guy was double covered and I'm throwing it up. I'm talking about I'm taking this post. It's a one-on-one. Guy's not wide open, but I have leverage here, so I'm going to put the ball here and get it out there. And we saw the same thing happen last week. There was a couple times that I just want to see, and I see him look at it, and like I know that he knows that ball needs to come out, but he just doesn't pull the trigger down the field. And I want to see him. So what I'm hoping, Vince, is that the throws he made on that last drive that he was in, and I think that was his last drive. The touchdown pass, I believe, was Kenny's last drive.
I think
maybe he got one more. But that's the stuff I hope reminds him of who he is. Hey, buddy, those are the throws that are why Tommy Rees and the Notre Dame staff went after you in the first place. Those are the throws that got you to the Elite 11. Those are the throws that had you throwing for 3,000 yards plus in high school. You can make that throw. Now go do it, because that's how you're going to win this job. If you're going to win this job, is because you have the talent to make those throws. Don't force the issue, but when it's there, take it. Trust your teammates and if they don't make the play, that's on them. That's on them. But yeah, I mean, there were some things I saw from him today that I was like, okay, I know he can do this and he needs to do it, but I didn't know he could do that, and that's a good sign.
Absolutely, it's another box to check for him in this competition. So, all right, let's talk about the third quarterback of the day, and that would be CJ Carr. He was wearing a green jersey, so he played for both teams. In the first half, he spelled Steve Angeli with the blue team, and then in the second half, he spelled Kenny Minchie for the gold team. So got reps with everybody, frankly, and so I guess that means he's a winner. I mean, I don't know. He was on the blue team for a while, led him to a touchdown drive, so he was part of the win.
Well, as I said before the game to you, Vince, I can guarantee that CJ Carr's team is going to win today.
Yeah,
but exactly. I can also guarantee that CJ Carr's team is going to lose today. And that's exactly what happened.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Easy prediction on your part on that one. But look, CJ Carr made some rookie mistakes in this game. There's no doubt about it. I mean, there were a couple of times where he needs to get the ball out a little bit quicker. There's a couple of times you talked about Kenny Minchie feeling some of that edge pressure. There was the one sack. I think he needs to feel that a little bit quicker and maybe get the ball, out of his hands. There was the one where he was getting chased to the sideline, runs out of bounds behind the line of scrimmage. And that was always my big, that always just.
Well, can I say there's one difference between that and what Ian Book did?
Okay.
As a quarterback, when you're throwing to the left, that's a much harder and more dangerous throw to make.
That's fair.
Because you have to turn and expose the football to that. And I remember
there's a guy trailing you, they could get a hand on it.
I think, isn't that what happened against Michigan State in 2017? Where I think Brian Lewerke was running left and he tries to go like this and somebody hit him and Greer Martini recovered the fumble. I think it's because he was trying to throw to his left. Because when you turn like this to throw, the defense is coming here. Anything near you, you've now exposed the football to the defense, where to the right, stow it away.
Right.
And that's what would drive me nuts about Ian, because Ian would do the same thing to the right that he did to the left.
So frustrating.
To the left, I understand, because and you also can't just flick the ball, because you got to get it past the line of scrimmage, and he was pretty far past the line.
He was back quite a distance. But it was frustrating. It's like, throw it away, but I understand where you're coming from.
Well, he should have stayed in the pocket. That was the thing. He had a read that he should have got to, but I think he was kind of, because of the way the pressure was, he was looking to get outside the pocket early. So I understood that, and that's what Coach Freeman was saying, is like, stay in the pocket. Don't get out too early. Stay in the pocket, make the read, get the ball out.
So definitely things, and we can expound on it, but definitely things that he needs to clean up and he needs to work on. But when he came in originally on the blue team, I'll tell you what, that kid, for being 18 years old or however old he is these days, as a second semester senior in high school, like, he played with some confidence, man. Like, the ball was just coming out smooth. I mentioned how, and I'm not trying to just compare the one to the other, but I mentioned how Steve Angeli just looked a little unsure in the pocket. It's the complete opposite for CJ Carr. He does not look unsure in the pocket. He stands in there and he knows exactly what he wants to do. He got through his reads pretty quickly, got the ball out of his hands. And when the ball leaves CJ Carr's hand, it's just different. It's hard to put your finger on. It's hard to explain. I leaned over to you at one point. I was like, I wonder if watching on TV, it looks the way it does in.
Yeah, that was a good observation. Like, does what we saw, and it sounds like from what I'm reading in the chat, Vince, that it did.
Okay, good.
The question being, like, does it look, because we don't really watch games on TV anymore. We always watch, either the All-22 or we're there.
Right.
And so it's like, does it come across on TV like the way that it does to us? Because there's a poise there, and all these kids have a level of poise, but this kid is just super poised and comfortable, and it's just natural for him. And just something as simple as like the throw he made to Deion Colsey. I'm trying to remember what was the down and distance on that throw.
Was that the third down one?
No, because he had a couple to Deion. He had the one on the scramble, right? The scramble out for 18. That's not the one I'm talking about. There was another one that CJ threw to Deion where he threw the ball high. It was an in cut. I thought it was an in cut. And CJ threw the ball high. And I'm like, that's the perfect place to put that ball. Because if you try to put it, when you have a 6'5" receiver and you put the ball here, you've now given that DB a chance to come through and go here. But when you have a 6'5" receiver coming over the middle and you put that ball here, that receiver, number one, the DB can't make a play on it, but now the receiver can kind of catch it and hold it in a way that's harder when you're here and you got guys tugging on your elbows. And you're like, just the ball placement was just perfect.
Oh, I mean,
now it wasn't always the ball on the fourth down to KK Smith. That was a little high. You got to get that down about 4 or 5 inches and maybe you have something there. But his feel for the game, like the out cut that he threw, who did he throw that to?
KK Smith?
KK?
Or I'm sorry. Yeah, KK.
Like there were two throws that he made today where I'm just like, I don't know that anyone else on this roster can make that throw. Or at least has shown the ability to make that throw. I'm like, does he know that there's a defensive back right in between him and the receiver? But the timing was so good and the trajectory of the ball was perfect because one of two things happens there. One is he throws it flat and it gets picked off.
Or at least knocked down.
He's late. And the ball comes late, and it's now KK may catch it, but he's out of bounds.
It sails out, yeah,
but
right.
The fact that he got that ball to KK over a defender and then allowed KK to catch it
2 feet in,
get 2 feet in bounds, you're like, that's a special throw.
Yeah.
The other one was the touchdown pass to Micah Gilbert.
He could not have reached out and handed the ball to him in a better
But here's what made that throw special. Micah beat the guy inside because his job there win. And then Micah did a pretty decent job of getting back outside, but that cornerback stayed outside. Why? Because the corner had a safety coming over to help. And so the corner was going to let Micah, if you're going to beat me, you got to beat me inside because I have safety help coming over. So if CJ throws that ball with a lot of touch, that safety comes over and breaks it up. But if he throws the ball on a line, that corner can maybe undercut it and make a play on it. He had the perfect combination of arc and velocity to where the corner had no chance and the safety couldn't get over fast enough. You know what I mean? Like, so if he puts that sucker with some air, the safety can maybe get over. It was just like, dude, that's such a savvy throw to read the release, the leverage release by the receiver. Because, like, if Micah wins outside, that ball's got to get thrown completely differently. It's got to get thrown exactly like the ball that Kenny had for a touchdown.
Right.
But because he won inside, because it looked to me, and I have to go back and watch it, but it looked to me like it was cover 2. And so Micah presses outside. Well, by the way, Micah did a good job. Like, that was a really good route by Micah to kind of press initially, then beat inside, then get back out on the stem. And then he fit that sucker right in between 2 guys. And you're just like, dude, that's a senior in college throw.
Yes.
This kid made in his first semester on campus.
Right. And he also, I think it was a ball that he threw to Polian, I think, off the top of my head. But it was just indicative of the fact that he throws such a catchable football. I mean, guys just need to stick their hands up and it's bloop. I mean, it's just right there. And It's hard to explain what a catchable ball is to people who have
I can
never
explain
played
it.
receiver. Okay,
I can explain
please
it.
do.
There's a few aspects of it. Number one is your ball placement's good.
Right.
It's like it's thrown with good timing, but not too early, not too late. So the timing is righteous. It's a play where the ball placement's good, meaning not every ball is meant to go right here. Sometimes I need that ball right here. Sometimes I need it 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 here. But everything too is he throws with good velocity, but it's such a tight spiral,
right,
that it's just and the way that this other thing too is the nose stays level or down. When a ball can get a little tough to catch is when the nose gets up. That's when a ball can be a little bit tougher, but his ball stays on a really nice flat plane, which means I can now target. Because when I teach my receivers to catch football, get your eyes on that X. You know, like I would actually, and I learned this from, I think it was Curtis Johnson, who used to be the receivers coach from my University of Miami, and he's been in the NFL for a while. But I think it was Coach Johnson did this, but he would take a football for receivers, and on the X, so like you have the four layers of how the leather's put in there, and he'd put a 0 right on each one, and he would want the receivers to be able to yell out the number of the ball as it was coming, because it's like you don't focus on the ball. Keep your eye on the ball. I never told my receivers keep their eye on the ball. Keep your eye on the X. You know, it's like the scene from The Patriot. And I've actually, it's funny because like, I like to shoot.
Aim small,
I like to throw. But yes,
that's
exactly.
Where you're going. Yes.
Same thing with the receiver is don't focus on the ball. Focus on zero in on a part of the ball. So when a quarterback throws with a really nice level plane, I can focus right on that football. And when I'm catching it, I'm catching the X and I'm catching the fat part of the ball. Whereas when it's down, it's a little tougher. When it's up, it's a little bit tougher. CJ throws with a really nice flat plane where you just got to catch up. And Kenny does as well. Kenny does as well.
Those two throw the ball
Kenny's
very,
a little
very
bit
well.
more inconsistent. Kenny will get some that are a little bit like up or down, but both of them throw the ball real nicely. Yeah. And that's really what a catchable ball is. And it's got velocity, but it's not humming at me.
It's not too much. Yeah.
Right.
It's not too much.
Right.
It's not Brett Favre where it's coming 1,000
John
miles
Elway or
right.
where it's like, you're leaving X's on your chest. Like
it's like, dude, it was a 12-yard pass.
The Broncos receivers will talk about the Elway cross.
Yeah.
You weren't really a part of the team if you didn't have an Elway cross in your shoulder pads. And what it was is because the X on the ball would look like a cross. And if you caught it with your pads, John Elway threw so hard that it would leave indentations on their pads, and it would be the X of the football, and it looked like a cross. So, yeah, I mean, it's not like that. But he can throw it zip. It's not like he's throwing, floaters out there either. That's what a catchable ball is, and that's what CJ does as well as anybody.
So catchable.
Catchable. Kenny's pretty good at that too. But CJ's look, I love Kenny. Y'all know that.
So do I.
But CJ just throws the ball different. And this is what I think a lot of the scouting services missed. No, he's not 6'5", 220. No, he doesn't throw the ball 75 yards down the air. But this kid just throws it different. This kid just spins it different, man. And there's just something about him. But that's not even really it, because I have seen kids that look phenomenal at 7-on-7s and camps, throwing the ball with no pressure. But the thing I said last week was why I want to see those guys live, Vince, is because CJ made a throw last week where he stepped into the pocket and he threw an in cut. And I'm like, does CJ have the moxie? I know he has the moxie to make that throw when he's wearing a red jersey, but does he have the moxie to make that throw when he's not like protected by the red jersey? And today he did exactly.
The answer is yes.
And to the point where I felt one time he probably shouldn't have thrown the ball while taking that hit.
The one that was short that should have been picked off. Yeah.
Right. And Deion Colsey did a great job on that. But my thing is either A, get it out sooner, or B, check it down.
Right.
But there was a willingness where like, I know the defense is collapsing around me, but I need to get that ball out. And that was impressive to me. But the other thing too, Vince, not only did he show that, but he goes to his second, third progression better than the other two quarterbacks. And here's the thing: this is now the second second live situation in a row that I've seen that, and I'm saying that CJ Carr is a true freshman, goes through his progressions better and more consistently than Angeli or Kenny. That's just,
I agree.
And he did it last week, and he did it again today.
Yeah, so it's not an anomaly per se from one practice. We've seen it twice now, and it's just very smooth. He doesn't look like he's rushing things back there. He's going through it. It makes sense to him. He does a good job. There was the one it was the screen, I think, to and I'm pretty sure it was him. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was the screen to Fisher, right? Was that CJ where he comes across, and it was CJ. I remember it now. He takes the snap. He's looking left, so he at least freezes the defense for a moment, and then comes back and hits Fisher going to his right. And it was meant to be a screen. It was meant to get him out in space, do the whole thing and with blockers in front and all that. But he didn't rush that at all. He allowed the play to set up. He's looking downfield to his left and then comes back to his right and puts the ball right on Fisher where it needed to go. Right. So it wasn't even a read situation, but it's like carrying,
because he knew where the ball was going.
Exactly.
And he knew, I need to manipulate and this is what I was talking about earlier that Steve needs to do. You know where you want to get that ball. Use your eyes to manipulate Jaden Ausberry.
Yes.
He only needs to take a step that way.
Correct.
And I've got that window to bang that in cut behind it. Steve, Kenny understands that to a degree. CJ definitely shows he understands that.
Absolutely.
And that savviness, we're like, this kid is really wicked smart.
Yeah, he is.
And
look, he grew up with Lloyd, the lineage makes sense. He's been coached probably since he was in a fetus.
I'll just say that I had a former Notre Dame coach told me, look, I've been around a lot of quarterbacks in my day. He's the smartest quarterback I've ever been around. I've ever seen.
There you go.
And you're seeing exactly what we're talking about. Like his feel for the game is so far beyond what you expect from a freshman. And he still has a lot of physical room for development.
Absolutely.
He's got plenty of room to get bigger and stronger, but he already throws the ball really well.
Right.
Pocket management is still a work in progress.
Sure.
We saw that today, knowing when to climb, knowing when to get out, knowing when to slide step and then get rid of the ball. Those are all things that CJ still has to learn, but the feel for it is there. He just has to get a little bit more consistent with it.
Which is one of the reasons that I'm happy the season is not resting on CJ Carr's shoulders in April.
Or Kenny's or
Steve. Because there's room for all three of these guys to improve, right? None of these guys are a finished product by any stretch of the imagination. And we haven't seen Riley Leonard, obviously. He's still the starter. Like, he is the starter. He's had the experience. He's been in the trenches. He's done all of the things, and we've seen him do all of the things, right? But I love where this group of three are right now because they can use this year to get to where they need to be and then battle it out in 25 for whoever happens to be the starter, right? That I'm happy that we're not counting on any of the three of them to be the man this year. Now, could they be? Could they step in and do really good things? Absolutely. But I'm happy that that's not where Notre Dame is right now. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm happy about that, but I love the future of this program from the quarterback room. Love it. Love it. You can be successful with these guys. There's no question in my mind. No question.
Well, the other thing too, Vince, that I absolutely love about this group is you can see that they're pushing each other.
Right.
They're seeing what the other guy's doing. And, it's okay. And sometimes it means that, okay, I maybe press a little bit. Other times like, okay, you did that. Now I got to do this.
Sure.
And they're all competing. That's the thing I love. Here's the thing that I was not concerned about, curious about. Who folds? Like, that was like, who folds? Who's the guy that just looks at the other three guys and is like, I'm just not getting my chance, or I'm not getting this, or I'm and kind of gets in their feelings a little bit. You know what I saw today? And to me, transferring is not folding. That's okay. I've made a business decision. I'm competed my butt off, and I'm talking about, like, during the spring, who folds. And what I saw today, the answer is none of them.
Exactly.
None of them folded.
Right.
They all had opportunities to fold. Kenny had every reason to fold after the way that scrimmage started and his interception. And he could have been like, well, there was my chance. I had my chance and I blew it. But it came right back and was through some of the best balls we saw all day. Steve had chances to fold today. plenty of chances to fold today. And he said, nah, I'm going to keep battling. And the same thing with CJ. And I think that says so much about the kids in that room. Now, again, I have my feeling on the hierarchy of what it should be.
Yeah.
But the thing that I say is like, you know what? There's not a kid in that quarterback room right now that as a coach, I'd be afraid to go to battle with. Not a one. Do I think Steve Angeli's the best guy in that room? Absolutely not, talent-wise. Do I think he can process reads and all that? Not at all. But will I ever question about whether or not that kid will battle with me? I do not. Does Kenny Minchie need to clean up some of his mistakes and be willing to take some chances here and there? And yes, he does. But do I feel like if I got to put that kid on the field, do I feel like he's going to battle his butt off? Absolutely do. I'll go to battle with that kid. And the same thing is true with CJ. And that's a great place. It's a problem because sometimes as a coach, you want somebody to seize hold of something, but you're also kind of, well, you know what? This guy folded and he's not that guy. But if you're Gino, you're like, did I put every pressure on every one of these kids all spring? And they've had some good practices, some bad practices, but every single time that, like, it's like a boxing match. I mean, there's been rounds where Kenny took a beating, maybe in a Tuesday practice or in a scrimmage or a drive, and he sits down in the corner. It's like, dude, I just got my butt kicked. But you know what he does when that bell rings? He gets right back up and goes right back at it. That's what you want. And all three of those kids have answered the bell every time. And that says a lot about this room. And to me, that's exactly why everyone that's a Team Kenny guy or a Team Steve guy or a Team CJ guy has something to hang their hat on today. Every one of them.
Absolutely.
Every one of them.
Yep. And there were times where it's like, I don't know about all three of them.
Yes.
I don't know.
I think Steve's about to be done. I literally thought that Steve's about to be done. He's about to fold.
Yep.
Because he sees what these other kids are doing. He's pressing. He's making mistakes. He's about to fold.
I was so happy.
And he comes right back, hits a 4th and 6 pass, and leads him. You know what I mean? It's like, I love it. I'm not a Steve Angeli guy, but I love that kid. I do, because of that right there. Is he the guy that I think can lead Notre Dame to a championship? No, I don't. But you know what? If he falls short, he's going to give you everything he has.
Right.
Same thing with Kenny. Same thing with CJ. And that's a good place to be as a coach, man. It is
in a great spot.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yep.
You love to see it. You really love to see it. But whoever ends up emerging from that group, you're going to feel pretty good about. I just think they need to make sure that they've given 8 and 12 as many opportunities they can to be that guy, because it's just so obvious that the physical God-given ability is just different with those two than it is with Steve. That's ultimately the big difference for me.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the big difference for me.
Completely agree. So that's our breakdown of the quarterbacks. Now we're going to jump into the rest of the offense. But before we do, make sure you hit that like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell. And Bryan is going to come back with some video breakdowns, but that's only on the boards. Boards.irishbreakdown.com. Now is the time, folks, to jump in and jump out, because this is where we're going to be breaking stuff down all summer. We're going to be doing, Bryan and I have had some good talks about some things we want to do on the boards only when it comes to some video breakdowns, kind of put some stuff up there, some videos that he and I are going to do together in the summertime and all of that. Now's the time to get on board. Boards.irishbreakdown.com. You will not be upset about that investment. I can promise you that. So get on over there, and then before you do, hit that like button. All right, let's talk about the rest of the offense, Bryan. Let's start. We'll just kind of go in order here. Running backs. We saw a little bit more from the running back room than we thought we would, at least more than I thought we would. I thought it was going to be more of a pass-happy type of game, but we saw a lot from the running backs today. I thought, we saw Jeremiah Love. We saw Aeneas Williams run the ball really, really hard. Obviously, some other guys got in there and got into the mix, right? Fisher got in there. Justin Fisher, it's a walk-on, but he ran the ball hard today for the gold team. And then even saw Devin Ford get some time in the backfield for the gold team as well, because their numbers were a little bit thinner, I would say, in the running back room than the blue team was. So you saw some guys getting some touches that you may not figure, but I thought the running game, I thought those guys competed, man. They ran hard, and the first overreaction that I'll put out there is that Jeremiah Love is going to be really freaking good. You put the ball in his hands, good things are going to happen, whether you're handing it off, whether you're, doing a reverse, whether you're, getting them the ball throwing it to them, whatever the case may be, when the ball is in number 4's hands, good things are going to happen. Holy cow, man.
Well, you know what I think, Vince, is honestly, like, that stuff doesn't even do anything for me with Jeremiah, because I just know who he is, and when he does things like, that's Jeremiah. That's what you expect.
Man,
the things that I like today. But you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, I know. Sure, Jeremiah can make people miss and run. Like, I mean that as a compliment. It's just kind of like, I expect that. I watched as I broke down his senior year. I watched him go for 300 yards in the state championship game. Like, that dude's Jeremiah is when the lights are bright. That's when you need to be worried about Jeremiah if you're the other team.
Sure.
Right? Like I don't think Northern Illinois needs to be as worried about him as Florida State does. You know what I mean? Like, he's just that kind of guy.
Makes
Not
sense.
that he can't go off against Northern Illinois. It just means that's when you're getting the really locked in Jeremiah. The stuff that really impressed me today, Vince, was more of the times where it was 3rd and 1 or 2nd and 2, and he would sit back there in the pocket or in the behind the line, stay on his track, and run slow and wait for the blocking to set up, and then boom, hit 3 yards.
Sure.
Like, that's the thing that guys like him don't often have. That patience to say, I only need 3 here. Because like take Josh Adams, for example. Every time Josh Adams touched the football in 2017 and 2016, he was trying to score a touchdown. And while that sounds good in theory, on 2nd and 2, when there's not a hole, I don't give a rip about you trying to cut back 15 times, and that'll work against Miami of Ohio, but you're going to average 2 yards a carry against Georgia, and that's exactly what happened. The thing I love about Jeremiah, and he did it last week as well a little bit, but the thing that he did today, Vince, is when it was 2nd and 2 or 4th and 1, Jeremiah said, I better make sure I get that 2 first.
Right.
Then once I get that 2, if I'm still going, then I can go do something with it. That's that level of discipline and patience that you need to have to be a great running back. Jeremiah is always going to be a highlight reel guy. That's not a doubt.
Right.
But you don't win a championship with a guy who's just a highlight reel guy. You're going to win championships with the guys who also understand on 2nd and 1, I got to get the 1 first and foremost. And then if my line does its job, or I can meet a guy in the hole and run him over, then I can go do my thing. But that's happening after I get my 1. And I didn't know that Jeremiah was going to be that, because he was still learning as a high school football player. He started to show that in the playoffs of his senior year. Jeremiah rushed for over 1,000 yards as a senior in the playoffs.
Oh, my goodness.
And he started to show that natural, because he was more of an athlete playing running back. And as he got into his senior year, you started to see more and more and more of that. And this year, you've seen even more of that in the practices, but also in the scrimmage, and then today, where it's 2nd and 2, get the 2, and then we can figure the rest out later. And then when he got the ball in space, then the highlights happen. But here's the thing.
Sure.
There's going to be times when you don't get the highlight reel play because you didn't pick up the 1 on 3rd and 1. Let me get the highlight reel play on 1st and 10 after you got the 3rd and 1, and then we get you the ball in space. But I need you to get me the 1 sometimes. And the fact that Jeremiah has shown an understanding and a willingness and a physicality, that's the big thing too, Vince, to say, hey, when I got to put my shoulder down and get 1, I'm getting 1.
He's not afraid of contact,
you don't need to sub me out on 3rd and 1, coach. I got this. And that's the thing you love to see, because Jadarian has it. He showed it in high school, and he showed it at Notre Dame. Does Jeremiah have it? And in the last 2 live game situations, the game Saturday and then the game today, Jeremiah has shown, if I need to put my shoulder down or be patient or whatever to make these plays, and I'm going to make them. But if you let me get the ball in space, you're going to pay for it. And like even the 18-yard run on, was it 4th down when he had that first long run he had?
Maybe, but I don't remember it being a 4th down, but I mean, it's possible.
It a 3rd down? Let me go find that drive when he had that really nice, it was like an 18-yard run from him. And I remember it being like a short yardage situation. I thought it was 3rd or 4th down. And just the patience he showed to hit that play, you're just like, man, that's a really savvy run. Because if he tries to get there too soon, then the play doesn't work because the hole isn't open yet.
Right.
And so the patience that Jeremiah has shown as a runner has it's something I hoped he would have, but he still needed to show in college, and he has now shown that on multiple occasions.
Absolutely.
And I'm looking through my notes now, and I can't find that particular play. But yeah, it was an impressive play, Vince.
For sure.
It was really impressive play.
So let's talk about Aeneas Williams, because obviously new to the team. A lot of fans have not seen him run. He runs the ball hard, man. Like, he runs the ball hard. He almost craves contact, it feels like. You know what I mean? And it almost feels like he runs harder after first contact. He's a guy I'm not afraid.
You saw that too?
Yeah. He's a guy you're not afraid to put the ball in his hands in that 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1 kind of a situation, and feel like, even if the line doesn't get a great push here, it's still going to get the first down. He's going to find his way, I feel like, on the field somehow, some way, because he just runs the ball hard. I don't know what he can do on the outside in a breakaway situation or, whatever. I don't care right now. He runs the ball hard, and I love that. I always told when I coached running backs or I was coaching offense, it's like, I want a kid who's going to run the ball mad. And it looks like he runs the ball angry, which I love that from a running back, man.
Vince, I love movie quotes, right? But you remember that scene from it's the opposite of Groundhog Day, right? Like, you remember that scene in Groundhog Day where Bill Murray's like, don't drive angry. Don't drive angry. Right. Like, no, I want a running back driving angry. Yes, you know what I mean?
100%.
But here's the thing, though. You can play out of control in that type of thing. But Aeneas did not do that. He did not play out of control.
No,
he plays like he knows, hey, if I gotta show some patience here. There was one read he made today where I thought he bounced it one too many times to the backside. It's going to happen.
Right.
But I just want to say something too. What a great job by Dylan McCullough to do two things. Number one, identify players that have a high football IQ.
Sure.
And then continue to enhance that when they get here. Because here's the thing about what you just said. They all show this to a degree. They all show this patience, this ability. Hey, I understand what's happening. I know that sometimes I'm going to have to let things happen, then go. And Aeneas had 2 short yardage situations. I think he had a 4th and 2 that he, again, get to your mark, plant your foot in the ground, and bull forward. That if he doesn't put his shoulder down and hammer that guy as hard as he can, he's not getting the first down. And his leg drive is impressive. He's got really nice feet. He's got really nice foot quickness. He runs with authority. And as I said today, his performance was better than the 3.9 yards per carry average that he had in the game. He played better than that. He graded out better than that in my opinion.
Right.
I got to go back and watch it. I didn't see him in pass pro, so I can't tell you how he did in pass pro. I'd have to go back and watch that.
Sure.
But as a runner,
man,
it was impressive. And here's the thing, like Jabron Payne had a good day today. Again, a couple times I thought Jabron cut it back one too many times, but he ran with authority. He knows how to get skinny. He knows how to hit the holes. He showed good patience.
He had some good bursts today, I thought.
Yes, he did. When he saw those inside zone holes, he would slam that sucker vertical and get yards. Average fight, he had 58 yards on 10 carries. I thought he had a really good day. Got to hold on to the football. That's going to be the big thing for Jabron. You got to hold on to the football.
Absolutely.
But he had another day too. I mean, we've always said this. If you ever have to go to battle with Jabron Payne as your starting running back, okay, cool. He'll give me 100.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like if for some reason, God forbid, you've got to go into the season and Jabron Payne's your number one, all right, they'll have a 1,000-yard back. It may not be as special and dynamic and flashy as Jeremiah Love or Jadarian Price or Keidron Young or whatever, but you're going to look at the end of the day and like, wow, that kid had 18 carries for 102 yards and had 4 catches for 26 yards and moved the chains. And boy, he didn't blow me away with numbers, but you're looking at the day, you're like, wow, he had a pretty good day.
Right.
And that's Jabron. And here's the thing. As good as those 3 kids looked, we didn't see Jadarian Price and we didn't see Keidron Young.
Right. Absolutely.
And Justin Fisher goes over there. Hasn't played running back in 3 years?
Right.
I mean, he was kind of a running back in high school, right?
I was going to say he was a quarterback, but triple option.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, he ran hard. He's hitting duo right up the hole. Again, hang on to the football.
Right.
But he caught 5 balls today. And
he's
and
versatile.
then Devin Ford moves over from defense and he makes a play. You're just like, dude, this is sick. This is stupid. Like,
I know.
You got walk-ons looking better than some backs that they've had on scholarship in the past.
You're not wrong.
But like this is such a loaded backfield. It's an absolutely loaded backfield. It really is because they all run with such authority and patience. They understand that sometimes it's okay to just get 2. And because if you do that, you're going to have more opportunities to then hit the home run. Keep those chains moving. And then eventually that home run chance is going to come and they can all hit it to some degree. But, Jabron did a nice job of letting the blocking get that movement and then get behind it and go. Aeneas did that very, very well as well today too. Like, what was the touchdown run he had? The play right before the touchdown run that he had. Let me find that because I thought it was Jagasol. That would have been the third drive. Yeah, they ran an inside zone for 9, and then he had the 7-yard touchdown. But he was kind of patient with it, left the left side of the line, just blow that up, and then just got right behind him for a big game. So I was pleased with all the running backs today.
Yeah,
man. I thought they all played well. They're stacked. They're stacked at quarterback. They're stacked at running back. They're just talented guys. And then receivers the same way, Vince. Do you have anything you want to add about the running backs? I thought it was a good day.
I think you're good.
Let's go to the receivers.
Yep.
Guys, I'm telling you, Jaden Greathouse did not have numbers that reflect how good he was today.
Oh, and
he caught 3 balls for 38 yards,
and they were all towards the end. I mean, they were later in the game.
He got pissed at himself when he had that drop.
100%.
And then he went out and just started like, okay, get me the
But he was visibly frustrated in the first half, Brian. That he was as wide open as he was, and
he should have been.
The football.
He should have been. I'm okay with it. Like even on the ball that they threw to him that got broken up, I think Steve threw that, and you told me he got hit. Well, first of all, Steve made 2 mistakes on that play. Number one is he should have hit the post. Now I understand what you're saying about it, but like my thing is when that guy's running here, then you've got to throw the post behind it. Okay, whatever it is, what it is. But if you're going to hit that over route, throw it now. He let Jaden Osbury catch up to Jaden Greathouse. Yes. And then when he got hit and the ball kind of floated, it broke it up. But if you throw the ball sooner, then guess what? Boom, you're not gonna have that. And then he was open on I think CJ, was it CJ that missed him on the play where he was wide open and he just didn't throw it to him? And he was put his hands on his, or was that Steve?
It was Steve still. Yeah.
He was frustrated today that he should have been. He should have got the ball more than he did.
Yes,
absolutely. To be completely honest with you. From what we were told, he just got rolled up on a little bit at the end of the scrimmage. Nothing major from what I'm told. But no, I thought Greathouse looked the part today. Just knows how to get open, plays with speed. Yep. Had that drop, but then again, that's going to happen. Jerry Rice, I'm sure. I know dropped balls before, but what do you do when that happens? With Jaden, he got pissed off. And then starts going off, and he has the 4th and 6 catch, and you're just like, this is that guy.
I remember, I was gonna say, I remember looking at you and be like, he was pissed off he wasn't getting the ball. Now one gets thrown his way, and he dropped it. Yeah. He's like, he's about to go off.
You said that to me. You said that to me because he just has that aura about him.
Right, exactly.
Like, oh, you guys are not going to be happy that
you're poking the wrong bear at this point.
Yeah, and then there was that was one of the mistakes CJ made was a ball to Greathouse. He threw a seam route to Greathouse. It was the right read, but he just made it late, and that allowed Kingston to come over and break it up. So
he was open. It was the absolute right read.
He was open a lot today. I'll tell you who had the most encouraging day for me. It's Deion Colsey.
Yeah.
Like I said, and this is the frustrating thing about Deion. I'm just going to be honest. Because, I'm pro Deion Colsey. I think he's got loads of talent. But last week, Vince, I'm just watching. The kid you saw today is not the kid I saw last week.
Right.
The kid I saw last week is going through the motions. Just didn't know he wanted to be out there. The kid I saw today, you can beat a lot of people with that kid today.
Absolutely.
I mean, just little things like getting open. Somebody had said, actually, and when they reminded me of it in the chat, he is the only guy that I think caught a ball on Christian Gray today. He was getting open. He was level on his end cuts. He was doing a good job on his stop cuts, getting open on that sideline route, breaking his route off when CJ scrambled, getting open. CJ hits him for 18 yards. But then even something like that, he prevented an interception.
100%.
He knew he had no chance of catching that ball. CJ got hit. Ball was underthrown. Deion knew I got no chance at this. And I'm like, interception. Like, we're all like, Christian's about to pick that off. Deion came down and smacked Christian Gray and broke the pass up. He played the role of DB. That's not going to show up on the stat sheet other than an attempt by the quarterback.
Right.
That's a huge moment in that game. And so those are the things that you look at and say, that's the Deion Colsey I want to see more of. That's the Deion Colsey that can be Notre Dame starting boundary receiver. That's the Deion Colsey that can go out there and have a Miles Boykin type breakout season.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if I'm going to get that guy from day to day. So for today, I'm going to rejoice the fact that we got that version of Deion Colsey because he did the little things. He was down. I mean, there was a couple times too, Vince, you and I looked at each other like, dude, Deion was open on the post on that one.
Right.
You know,
and today's the day you want to throw him the ball because he was making plays.
Yeah.
You know, he was making plays. And I will say that neither CJ nor Steve were afraid to throw him the football. I mean, because look, if he's going to be given the effort like we've seen him give sometimes in a negative way, sometimes quarterbacks aren't going to want to go his direction. They went his direction with confidence today. Both guys. Yeah. Obviously, CJ early and then Angeli late. But they both went his way, and he rewarded them, right? He rewarded them, and he also rewarded CJ by not letting that pick happen. And look, I've seen plenty of wide receivers in my day just let that ball get picked off. You know what I mean? I got underthrown again. You know, it's not going to come to me, whatever. I'll make
it's the quarterback's fault. He didn't make the right throw, and he would have been correct.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But he made a play on the ball, on the receiver, quote unquote, since it was since it was Gray, it was a defender, but he dropped his shoulder and put a hit on him. I mean, that is why Christian Gray dropped that ball, is because he got hit. No question in my mind. And so that was a huge play. It was an absolutely huge play. So I was very impressed with Deion Colsey. That was the Deion Colsey that we think he can be. And I hope that he can replicate that, not only in games, right? Because if he doesn't do it in practice, he's not going to make the 6-man rotation. I mean, I'll just say it, because there's a lot of talent in that wide receiver room. And we heard that, Coach Brown wants to have a 6-man rotation-ish. He won't have an opportunity to make those plays in a game if he doesn't do it in practice. And so my hope is that he can take this performance, springboard it into the summer, and then, of course, into fall, and become one of those 6, become one of those guys that they can count on, because he has the ability, man, to do it. He has the absolute ability to do it. So I hope he does. Yeah,
no doubt. KK Smith, a little up and down today.
Yeah.
But you saw the good version of KK. There was the one ball in the end zone. He mistimed it. It's the one, it wasn't in the end zone. It was deep. I think CJ threw it, and it hit his hands as he was falling down.
Oh,
if he times it a little better, because Micah Bell didn't quite know where the ball was. Mike actually was in pretty good position, but CJ threw a great ball.
If KK runs that route like Micah Gilbert ran that route, I think,
I think he would have had to go up for the ball, because the way that Micah Bell played, because I know you were looking at the line on that particular play. So what happened was Micah actually caught up to KK, because Micah can fly. And CJ saw it, and CJ threw the ball kind of back shoulder-ish.
Okay.
And Micah just timed his turn to the ball too early. And so he was kind of coming down as the ball got to him. If Micah times it a little bit better, he's got a better shot of making that play.
You mean KK?
KK.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what it is.
Gotcha.
He needs to do a little bit better job on that last 4th down throw of fighting for it. But CJ's got to get that ball about 4 to 6 inches closer to him. Just neither guy did a great job there. And it was pretty good coverage by Micah Bell on that play as well. But overall, solid day. Did a nice job. He got free on that post-snap switch. He showed good timing of it. Got outside on that particular play. Got free for a big play there. I thought he had a solid day. A little up and down, but a solid day. Micah Gilbert had the drop on the first drive, which you got to make that play.
Have to. But that was a 3rd down. That was that was a big one.
But he also made some plays in the game. The touchdown catch he had, the first one, was because Mike had 2 on the day. But the second one was more about good win at the line. He won at the line. Boom, over. I think he went against Marty Auer on the play, so it's kind of like, okay, I don't want to get too fired up about that one. But he still did a nice job of getting getting back out. Technically, he was sound on that. I'm not like Micah Gilbert knows how to win at the line. It's like on that play, because he beat Marty Auer, who should be playing safety. He's only playing corner because they've run out of corners, right? Like, let's be honest about that.
Sure.
Because of injuries and transfers and stuff. And the 2 freshmen aren't on campus yet. But the technique was sound, and he caught the ball, cleanly in a decent window. The first one was a thing of beauty, Vince, because he wins outside, and he's playing Micah Bell, and he knows he can't outrun Micah Bell. He knows this. everyone knows this. Everyone on the receiver knows I can't outrun Micah Bell.
Right.
So what Micah Gilbert did a great job of is he beat Micah off the ball and then stacked him. And that's a perfect example of why you stack a corner, because once I stack you, I don't care what your speed is, because you are on my backside now. You're on my inside cheek. You can't do it. But Micah Bell did a really good – this is going to get confusing. Micah Bell did a nice job of staying right in that hip and making the window to throw over him tight. Mm-hmm. What a lot of receivers will make a mistake there is they win and they're so wide that it's either dropped on my outside or it's out of bounds or incomplete. But what Micah Gilbert did a great job of is winning and then leaning back in on the vertical stem, which gave him room to outside. See, Kenny perfectly placed the ball outside towards the pylon, and then Micah, it was really savvy. I don't know if you all could see this. This is one of those ones where I'm curious what the people that were in the stadium saw this. But Micah Gilbert is there. He stays vertical. He knows the ball's coming outside. He stays vertical and then accelerates outside away from Micah Bell. There's nothing Micah Bell could have done about that. Great route, great ball, really smart play by the quarterback and the receiver, to where once you won on the line, that corner was in a bad spot. It was going to take the quarterback not placing the ball where it needs to be, or the receiver not stacking for him to recover. It
was a thing of beauty.
It was great.
It was a thing of beauty. You can't play from a receiver standpoint. You can't play that any better than Gilbert did. And then you add to it the ball that Minchie threw, and it was just beautiful from start to finish. I mean, that's what it was. Beautiful from start to finish. And it kind of gave a glimpse into what Micah Gilbert can be for this team. And it gets me excited. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, he was good. Dion, we talked about Dion, talked about KK, we talked about Micah Gilbert, we talked about
Great House.
I don't know that did we miss anybody at receiver? I'll tell you what, Jack Poling's a good little football player, man.
Yeah. Oh, he can really make a team. He can make a lot of teams.
He's a
in college
good football player, man. And I'm not saying this to be disrespectful, but if I was still like at Duquesne or something like that, or at Valpo, I'd be begging that kid, play your 5th year for me.
Yeah.
That's like, he's a good little football. He's a little bit more athletic than I thought. Like, there was one play he was going into jet motion. I'm like, dude, Jack is moving on this jet motion. Like, he is moving. He's a tough little football, because Vince, you and I have been standing next to Jack Polian. He's not a big kid.
No.
And he competes for the football now. This is the second week in a row, because he made a play. He made a couple plays last week where he caught the ball with the guy on him. And he's a good football player, man. Like, he's that kind of guy, and they'll get Leo Scheidler back, who's injured right now. But Leo Scheidler's another walk-on receiver. You're like, that guy's a good football player, man. And, Jack Polian's a good football player. So they had some good moments. And then, Chris Mitchell had a solid day, but, he didn't get a ton of targets today, but he ran a really nice stop and go route on that last one. I mean, and then once he realized he had the guy beat, he accelerated past him. Then ball and then went and scored. So it was good to see him kind of break out and make a play as well. Quick, let's just anything else about receiver, Vince?
No, I think we hit it.
Tight ends. Yep. For those who were concerned about whether or not Mike Denbrock was going to throw to the tight end position, I told you guys that was more about a byproduct of the talent he had at LSU and the makeup of that roster. And when I mean talent, not that he doesn't have good players at tight end, but he had Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors and guys like that, a receiver. And then this year they had a lot of injuries at tight end as well. So it was Mason Taylor and then not a whole lot else. So Cooper Flanagan had 3 catches. So that's 3 for the tight ends. Henry Garrity had a catch today for the tight ends. And then Jack Larson had 4 catches. So that's 8. And then E. Rayland had 5 catches. That's 13 catches for the tight ends today. Mike Denbrock is not going to avoid throwing to the tight ends. Right?
Yep.
They're going to get the ball. I thought it was great to see Eli out there making plays. And Eli's another one that his numbers should have been better than they were. He was open on another seam throw, and that's when Steve was late getting the ball out and got hit. Mm-hmm. He's got to hit that a little bit quicker. But overall, I thought he did a good job. And the touchdown throw, it was kind of funny. I don't know that he was quite sure what he was supposed to do, because he was running kind of slow. but Steve got the ball out real quick.
All of a sudden, here comes
Don
the ball.
Schuler came over, kind of tipped it. Eli showed really good focus, and
yeah, he did.
And that's one of those ones where that ball probably should be on his back shoulder. If we're being honest, when you got to see that safety squeezing down, you got to get that ball kind of here on Eli, so that way Adon can't make that play on it. But overall, I thought the tight ends had a good day today. Should have had Cooper had a drop on the sideline.
Right.
But I'll give him that one because he also made a great leaping catch on another ball. And Jack Larson showed that kid's a good football player, man. I don't know if he's physically ready to block all the time yet, but Jack Larson showed today. I know how to run routes. I'm a good athlete, and I catch the football. He's not a burner, but that's why you saw today, Vince, why I compare him to Nick O'Leary. Remember the tight end on the Florida State's title team in 14?
Yep.
That's Jack Larson to me, man. He's never going to blow anybody away with speed, or he's not 6'6" or 6'7" like the other tight ends. Kid just knows how to get open.
Yeah.
He just knows how to get open, man.
He's the same number as O'Leary, too, wasn't he? 42?
So. 85. He's 85.
Oh, okay.
Garrity's 42.
Garrity's 42. My bad. Yeah. Were the tight ends attached very much? I felt like they were split out.
No, they were.
Okay.
Especially when they went 12 personnel. Yeah, they were attached a decent amount today. More than I saw them at LSU.
Okay, that's going to be a rewatch for me to see how they blocked and things like that.
Leary was 35. That's why you're thinking that they were similar.
Okay.
But it's the 5.
And so I'd have to go back and watch how they blocked. I know Sherwood was in there, and he did some of the classic kind of H.
Yeah, and he got called for a bad hold.
Yeah, he did. Yes, he did. So, but from a receiving standpoint, I thought those guys did a pretty good job, and they're going to be weapons this year. There's no doubt about that. Denbrock will use the tight ends. If anybody is nervous about that, don't be. He's going to use every weapon in the toolbox this season, guaranteed. And tight ends will be one of those weapons for sure.
Yep, absolutely. Overall, I thought they played well, had some good moments. Eli looked like freshman version of Eli blocking at times today. When I watched him, he had a really nice block on the touchdown run by Aeneas Williams. So that was good. I didn't see much of Cooper blocking today. Honestly, I didn't notice one way or the other. I just didn't see it. I'll see it more on the upon further review type of thing. So, but overall, good day from the tight end position. I'll watch more when I break down the film. I want to talk about the O-line, Vince, because
we had some fun talking about the O-line during
the game. There was some good and some bad from the O-line today.
For sure.
And part of that is because they're going against a really good defensive line. Part of that is because they have work to do. And let's just talk about who we both felt was the most impressive player today from the O-line. 5-0. I thought Rocco was really good today.
He really was.
Again, I'll have to go back and watch the film to see how he did in pass pro and all that. But when I saw him in pass pro, he handled himself well. But he was moving people in the run game. There's a play, Vince, where he's going against 330-pound Sean Sevillano, and he blows him like 7. I made you watch the play because there were times when Vince and I try to tag team certain things. So like on certain drives, say, Vince, watch the secondary, watch the receivers. I'm going to watch the line, right? And so he was watching the secondary on this particular play, and I made him go. I had it on my screen. I said, "Watch this block." And Rocco comes off against Sean Sevillano and just blows him off the ball.
He got him under the arm and just blew him 7 yards to the right.
No, yes, correct.
You know what I mean?
On skates. That's a 330. That's one of the few guys Rocco's going to face that weighs more than he does.
Right.
But then his best block of the day was
the touchdown.
There was a couple times where I thought him and Charles Jackson saw some really nice double teams where they would get a push, then Charles would come off to the line. Because there was one pass like, did you see Charles Jagasaw block Jalen Snead 7 yards down the field?
Right.
It's not that he drove him 7 yards. It's that he went and blocked him 7 yards down the field. They got a really nice double team on the zone, and then he came off to that to block Jalen Snead down the field.
That takes time.
Yes. But the touchdown run by Jeremiah, I think it was the Jeremiah Love touchdown run.
It
was Kenny Minchie.
No, it's Kenny
Minchie because Jeremiah was on the other team.
Yep.
He destroyed Donovan Hines, who had a pretty good game.
Right.
Like Donovan played pretty well otherwise, and Donovan was really good last week. But Donovan tried to go mano a mano with Rocco Spindler, and Rocco was like, nope. Like, I got you by 50 pounds, cuz you're getting worked.
I want to set this up because if people didn't watch it, you need to go back and watch it because they had Charles Jagasaw got out in front of that running play, okay? And he was leading the way for Kenny Minchie, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Rocco Spindler wasn't even supposed to be out there leading the way on this run. That wasn't what he was. He was just supposed to occupy the defensive lineman and just block him, right? No, he took him and drove him not only down the field, but to the left. And it looked like he was supposed to be out there lead blocking for Kenny Minchie on this run. I mean, he just absolutely destroyed him. I mean, just took him up and to the left and across the goal line and led block essentially for Kenny Minchie, even though that wasn't even what he was supposed to be doing. That's how good of a block it was.
So why I felt Rocco played better today was he didn't look smaller. He didn't look like he's lost 15 pounds. He was doing a couple things well. He was moving his feet well. He never got flat-footed like he did last year, where he would just plant his feet in the ground.
Right.
He was more agile. He was like moving his feet. And it's not so much that maybe he got quicker, but it's more so a technique thing. Just keep working your feet. Keep working your feet. Because when you're that big and you're not a great athlete, when you stop your feet and then try to go again, you're going to fall down like you did against Duke last year. It was one of the more embarrassing plays of the year. But today, Rocco kept his feet moving. He kept working, but he also played with really good pad level. Because the only way he can get under Sean Sevillano's 6'1". Rocco's 6'4". The only way to get under that guy's armpit and drive him off the ball is because you beat him at the low point. You got lower than he did. And that was the thing I saw from Rocco today. Charles Jagasol had some issues in the pass pro at times, but those two working on that is – we'll get into big picture stuff, but today that was a dominance. They kept cutting right back behind him the whole game. Then they ran the touchdown at them. Like that was a side when the gold team needed yards, that's where they went. And those two kids got a push. And then Ashton Craig was part of that as well. I thought Ashton played well also. So that was like, okay, that's a lethal duo in the run game. They got really good movement today. On the gold team. So that was very good to see. The center to the left side of the offensive line of the gold team in the run game was pretty good. Chris Terrick had a really good early block. He just struggles with speed right now because his technique is not where it needs to, is not consistent. But when Chris Terrick knew where to go, he got some good pushes as well today. But I thought Rocco Spindler was hands down Notre Dame's most consistently impressive offensive lineman other than Billy Schrauth.
Yeah.
I thought for the blue team. I thought those two guys to me today were without a doubt the two best linemen. I'd probably put Ashton Craig next. Just the steadiness from that group. They were really good today. I thought Billy also, Vince, today had, and you pointed it out a couple times as well. You're like, they cut right behind Billy Schrauth on that play.
Yep.
Now
and there were times where he blocked his guy.
Yeah.
A ways down.
He was part of that play where Jason Onye split him and it was Sam Pendleton. And Billy's got to do a better job of squeezing that off. That was a double team. He came late to that double team, and Jason Onye just mashed him.
Was that the sack?
That was where he pushed. Yeah, he knocked down Angeli.
Yeah.
But that was a heck of a play by Onye. But Billy's just got to be a little bit better coming over there to meet that double team with a little bit more force. Outside of that, I thought Billy had a really good day. I thought the interior, those three interior guys were hands down the best today.
Yes,
I thought Christopher Terrick had some moments. I thought that Sam Pendleton had some good moments blocking, rough day snapping. Also had some really rough plays because you could just see the snapping was getting in his head a little bit, and that was causing him to think too much, which was then hurting him in the run game and in pass pro. So Stam's still a work in progress. He struggled today. Jagasol was up and down. He had some good moments in pass pro and some bad moments in pass pro where he didn't have the urgency. Like, here's the thing. You're facing some dudes with some twitch on the blue team. Boubacar Traore has the best first step that Notre Dame has had on the D-line since Julian Aguilar in 2018. Like, that's how quick Boubacar is off the ball. He's just got explosiveness. And RJ Oben, we'll get into that later, but their speed gave Charles problems, but he just wasn't getting out with urgency. That's the thing. He's got to know to get out with a little bit, not out of control, because then they'll just hit you with double teams or get up on you and drive you back. But he's got to play with a little bit more urgency on the edge. he had a little bit of a rough day, and that happened last week too, Vince. He had a couple plays where he got beat around the edge because he didn't get out with enough urgency. So that's a problem. But run game wise, he's money.
Yeah.
Pass game wise, he's still a little bit of a work in progress. Right tackle. Well, let's stay at left tackle. Sullivan Absher today is a lot like Charles Jagasaw. He's going to have some issues with speed rushers on the outside, but in the run game, there was a couple times I pointed out to you, I was like, hey, watch this block by Sullivan Absher. He gets some movement in the run game. I mean, he got some movement in the run game today. But, again, just some little bit of consistency there. I mean, I honestly, from what I saw of Sullivan Absher today, I would strongly consider moving him over to right tackle.
Giving him a shot. I was just going to ask you that. Yeah. Give him a shot.
He played better than the two right tackles. He played better than Emil Wagner, and he played better than Tosh Baker today, in my opinion.
Yeah,
he did. He did. So that was good to see. He's just not a left tackle, Vince. He's just not a left tackle. And so I would consider doing that. I would consider doing that. Yep.
And I will summarize what you said to me in the press box about right tackle. We came into the spring with a question mark at right tackle, and we're leaving the spring with a question mark at right tackle.
Yes.
I mean, that's the best way to put it,
didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I have my moments.
Yeah, you do. And I want to repeat it so everybody knows. Everybody can feel like they were in the car with us. But I mean, that's absolutely true. I mean, there were some good things, but there were more questionable things than obvious good things. I would say. It's still a work in progress, man. I don't know what the answer is at right tackle right now.
And the thing is, the problem is that you and I had to remind ourselves of this in the car. You're like, look, we always tell people not to make too big of a deal out of the spring game, but here's the difference in this particular case, because we're looking at this is what we've been seeing with Emil and Tosh. Tosh will have he had some really good snaps today, but then there's just times where he comes off too high, where he doesn't quite get out of a stance well enough and can get beat on the edge, or they get under his pads, and it's just a lack of consistency from Tosh. We saw it last week. We saw it today where he'll do some good things, but when he gets beat, it's very noticeable. And that's why people think Tosh doesn't play well. And it's like, well, because when he gets beat, it's noticeable. But then you study it and you're like, well, no, he graded out pretty well.
Yeah.
But it's just like, but when he gets beat, and that's the thing I said in the show, I think it was yesterday in the Blue Gold game preview on Thursday, Vince. I said, look, the thing with Tosh is he's not going to be a dominant player. I don't need him to be. Just do your job every time.
Yeah.
And the problem with Tosh is he just has those snaps. So he's just got to learn to be more consistent. Keep your pads low, work your feet, use your hands. And today, and huge kudos to Al Washington for this, but across the board, the hand play from the defensive line was just better than the hand play of the offensive line. That's just something that we saw today. But, people saying Tosh isn't the answer. They got to give him Emil more snaps. And I'm like, guys, Emil got plenty of snaps last week and plenty of snaps this week, and he just doesn't make plays. He just doesn't flash. And so neither one of those guys have played very well. Now, I'll go back and watch the film, and maybe Emil played better when I watched the film, but when I'm watching it live, I just didn't see it. So it's still a question mark. I thought Pat Coogan also struggled today. He got bullied a few times, and that's something he's going to have to work on. He's going to have to work on that aspect of it, of just not getting bullied and not allowing himself to get pushed around the way that he does at times. And he just didn't get the movement you'd expect a junior or a senior now, who's a second-year starter, to get pushed around.
Yeah.
Joe Otting's very much a work in progress. He needs a lot of work. He's still learning. A lot of those guys are learning. And Ty Chan showed today kind of what the fear has been all spring. He just doesn't have it. He's just not that.
He struggled.
Yeah.
Offensive face mask at one point, it was because he got beat. I mean, he was just trying to do whatever he could to save his quarterback at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't a great day.
Yeah. So again, it's Charles has got to, it's about consistency with the tackles. It's just like, look, you show good moments. It's just, you got to avoid the bad moments.
Right.
And that's kind of where they're at with that, Vince, because that's the issue. But love what I saw from Rocco Spindler. Loved what I saw from Billy Schrouth. Love what I saw from Ashton Craig. Saw some flashes from Christopher Tarrick. Again, he's got some beef to him.
Right.
And when he gets his pads on you and he's low and he's driving his feet, you're done. Just take the L, go down. I mean, just like go down and well, that's actually an actual teaching point. Like when you're getting whipped,
just
go
make
down.
a pile. Make a pile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't get driven off the ball. Go down.
Right. Make a pile.
Clog up the lane kind of thing. And so, so there were some good things. I didn't notice Anthony Knapp or Peter Jones today. I know they were both in there, but I didn't have eyes on them. So I'll look at them when I break down the film and do some follow-up stuff for the message board. And so you guys will get a chance to see that. I'm going to probably do an upon further review tomorrow, but it's going to be for the message board only breakdown of that. But so I'll pay attention to some of those guys as well. So just offensive line is a lot like last week, just up and down.
Yeah.
The run game, the thing is, Vince, and you said this, and I want you to talk a little bit about this. This is why it's actually a good thing. Or why I feel good about the line. They got a lot of work to do, but I feel good about it because today, the one thing you hoped is like, Duke, they got some beef at least. Can we just at least see you guys move some people? And today, we did. I mean, they moved the pile well today.
Right.
They did a good job getting a body on a body in the run game and driving the defensive line off.
Yes.
And that was a good sign.
We're not seeing the issues that we've seen from the offensive line in the past where they stop moving their feet or, something along those lines. Like they're fundamentally strong. They're the fundamentals that we want to see from a Notre Dame offensive line, from the guys that we think are going to be gaining playing time, are strong. And that's a great place to start. That's a great place to start. Now they just need to build on it, and they need to get reps with the 5, whoever they think that's going to be. Coming out of this, I think I know who 4 should be. I don't know who the 5th is necessarily, but I really like watching the.
You just had to. We said we weren't going to say that today, but you just had to. You're so fired up about it. It's okay.
My bad.
I get the way he played today, man. I am with you.
Let me just say this. I just really like the way the left side of the gold team played together today.
In the run game,
In the run game. I really like the way they played today. I'll just say that. Yeah. We can project later, but I really like what I saw from that, and I really like what I saw from Billy Schrouth. There were a lot of good things to take away from the offensive line, but there's still work to be done.
Yeah.
And the fall is going to be a time where hopefully some of those questions get answers. Yeah, absolutely.
And the thing you guys have to remember is they're going against a really good defensive line.
Very good.
Like a really
athletic.
Good. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna have some losses in those situations.
Yeah.
We had a super chat from Trevor Rock. He said, Bryan and Vince, I'm coming in. Thank you for the super chat, my man. I'm coming in late today celebrating my wife's birthday. My wife Lindsay's 40th birthday. She's been in the hospital, as you all know. She's battling, I believe, cancer, right? She's has been in the hospital rehab for 3 months. She's been home for 3 weeks.
Nice.
And we thank God for that, as do we, my friend. Who impressed you on the offensive line today? And so that's kind of what we were getting into, Trevor. I would say the top 3, no doubt about it, standouts for me today. Gold team, it was Rocco Spindler and Ashton Craig. Blue team, it was Billy Schrouth.
Because the interior.
Right. And then if I had to pick a 4th guy that really impressed me based on just uncertainty, I really liked what I saw from Sullivan Absher today. I thought Sully had a really nice, and again, just like Jagasol, a little bit of a work in progress in the pass game, but I really liked what I saw from him today and what he showed from a run game standpoint. That kid can move some people.
Yeah.
And so that would be the 4 for me that stood out the most to me. And I know Vince was loving what Rocco did today. A couple times I had to kind of show you on replay, and then all of a sudden Vince is like every play for like the next series, like, did you see what Rocco did?
Like, now I'm watching. See what you did? You created a monster.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the super chat, Trevor, and we're so glad that Lindsay's home, and I know that she's still in that battle, man, and it's a long, long battle. We're praying for her. We're praying for you, and we're glad that you could join us today and talk about this game and wish absolutely, Vince. Vince got me. Wish her a wonderful 40th birthday.
Yeah, man.
But here's the only, can I give you some marital advice, Trevor? For the next 5 years, you should have just kept telling us that it was her 39th.
Yeah.
And just kind of stick on that for a while. But no, man, we're happy that she's home with you. 100%. And we're praying for her. So keep us in the loop on how she's doing. But hey, keep fighting, Lindsay. Absolutely. And wish you very, very happy birthday. Absolutely. So Vince, I think that'll do it for the offensive side of the ball. But before we go to the ending here, Before that, though, we do have to give out some game balls.
Ooh.
So let's give out game balls for the gold offensive team and the blue offensive team for today.
Okay.
Do you have yours, or do you want me to start?
So I can go gold for sure.
Okay.
So my gold game balls are going to go to Micah Gilbert and Rocco Spindler. Those are my two game balls for the gold team.
I'm picking one, and I'm going with Rocco. I thought Rocco was the guy that really set the tone for the gold team today. But I'm also okay if you wanted to go Micah. He had to drop early, but he bounced back, and he made some big plays in the game and had some big catches. So I'm good with that one as well. Blue team, if you want, I mean, I think I know who the two would be on this one as well. But I got to go with Steve Angeli on this one. I do. Because he stepped up and led him on the two late touchdown drives to pull ahead and then to twice and take that lead. And I got to give it to him. Yeah, he had some issues. I'm okay if you want to go Jeremiah Love. I can get that one too.
Sure.
But look, I bang on Steve a lot. I do. And I think it's justified and it's just evaluation analysis. But the kid stepped up and made those game-winning throws today. He really did.
So I will go with Billy Schrouth on the blue team and Jeremiah Love. That's mean. It's mean. It's mean. And for those out in podcast land, he's showing me a slice of pizza. It's messed up. But anyway, so those are the two I'm going to go with.
That is
Jeremiah Love, Billy Schrouth.
by the way, over on Hickory in South Bend. And you've had Politos, correct?
Yeah, it's great.
Yes. So my wife surprised me. She didn't time it up quite well because she didn't think the show would be 3+ freaking hours today.
I know.
So in her defense, we should have been off of here by now, but
fair.
She brought me some Politos, so I'll be punishing this a little bit. Go ahead.
I'm going to cheat, and because I'm a cheater, but I'm also going to give I'm going to give another game ball to the green team, and I'm going to go CJ Carr to the green team because I can. So that's how I'm going to do.
When you're an OG, you can do things like that, baby.
I realize the numbers are very thin on the green team, but I want to shoot some love to CJ because look, and the reason being, I wasn't there last week, and I heard all the glowing, remarks about CJ Carr and how the ball looks coming out of his hand and all of these different things and the decision making and all that. I didn't see it with my own eyes, so I got to see it today, and it impressed me. Like this is kind of old hat for people that got to see him last week. I didn't get to see him, so I did want to throw some love his way just because I love his poise in the pocket. Of course, there's things he needs to work on. We talked about that earlier, but he played well. And it was just different when he was in there. So I do want to give him a game ball. So I cheated and gave it for the green team.
For the record of people talking about defensive players, these are game balls for the offensive guys. We haven't got to the defense yet,
which is scary.
We'll get there.
But yeah,
Vince, when we do get to the defense, we are going to need to kind of,
100%. I know I've got a water softener that's going to go off at some point too. So
yeah.
But before we get to the defense, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your family and friends, and get on the boards because Bryan is going to do upon further review tomorrow. He's going to do it solo because I got to be on the road, but it's only going to be on the board. So boards.irishbreakdown.com. And if it's on the boards, that means there's going to be some actual video upon further review. So you want to make sure you check that out because there's going to be some good stuff there. We've already talked about some of the video that he's going to use, and you're going to like it. You're going to want to check that out. So make sure you check that out. All right, let's talk some defense today, Bryan. Gosh, we used to be such good friends. Let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. A lot of good things defensively. They are a more complete group defensively than the offense because all the guys that you ticked off and you named were mostly offensive guys. And there's only really two guys majorly missing on the defensive side of the ball. That's Rod Hurd and Benjamin Morrison. Big pieces. Don't get me wrong. Big pieces, but they're more of a complete group right now that we were kind of able to check out defensively.
Huge shout out to Vince for the poise he showed because I was purposely trying to distract him with how I was eating that pizza.
That's not
and
easy.
He stayed on it, man. That's why you're the OG with me, man. That's a great point because like you talked about, they didn't have Benjamin Morrison today and Rod Hurd today, but they had a lot of other guys playing today. But I mean, they did what you kind of think that you want them to do. They made plays. Yeah. There were some blown assignments, and they're a work in progress too. And not having Benjamin Morrison certainly, limits some of the things you're going to do. And but they battled and they made plays and they made stops when they needed to make stops,
Sure.
Forcing field goals on that first drive and coming up with a late half turnover to keep that drive going, coming up with the big turnover at the end of the game today and the big fourth down stop, I should say, at the end of the game today. So they did what they needed to do. And we saw some veterans, play well in limited time.
Right.
We didn't see, Howard Cross and Riley Mills didn't play a lot of snaps today. They don't need to.
And neither did Jack Kaiser.
I don't
right?
exactly. Doesn't need to.
Right.
Xavier Watts played a decent amount early, but I don't remember seeing him in the second half because he didn't need to.
That was more because of there's not a bunch of safety depth, right? I mean, when you're splitting everybody up on two teams,
Right. Yeah. Right. So those things are good, but more so it was, okay, they're going to compete, they're going to battle. And we saw some guys step up today that were like, I don't know how this guy's been so far. And then we saw some guys step up today that, to me, you needed to see. Like that's the thing, is like, is this guy going to step up? Is that guy going to step up? And they did. And that was a very encouraging sign for me.
Yeah, for sure. So let's start up front. Let's talk defensive front and what these guys were able to bring to the table. You talked about the girth of Sean Sevillano. You talk about the twitch of Boubacar Traore. All of these different guys. I mean, we talked about the offensive line and what they were able to do, but it was even more impressive at times because of who they were doing it against. And so I think that's a really important point to make, because this isn't, they're not playing against third string defensive linemen. They're playing against guys that are going to make plays for Notre Dame on Saturdays here moving forward. And I thought this was really my first opportunity to get my eyes on Boubacar and see what he can do in a live, situation. And I thought,
he's really twitchy, dude.
Man, he's quick off the line.
He really is. Well, can I start up front? Three players that really excited me today.
Okay.
You nailed one, Boubacar. Consistency is still a thing for him because he's learning.
Sure.
But when he comes off, man, he is really, really twitchy. And there's a couple times like, did he jump? Was he off sides?
I know.
And I had to go back and watch the replay and be like, no, he didn't. He just is so fast off the ball. And I've had Notre Dame people I know who are really good evaluators that are like, that guy's a first round talent. Now he's not a first round player yet, but they're just saying like the athletic talent there is first round talent. That was a great sign.
Yep.
And Vince, I've said this to you privately, and for the first time in the spring, I said it publicly. It was either yesterday or the show on Thursday, the preview show, maybe both, where I was not thrilled with what I've seen so far from RJ Oben this spring. And I said, look, we haven't seen a ton. He's balling out in the practices. We're not there. He's learning a new defense. As you saw today, he's playing a lot tighter techniques on the edge than he did at Duke, where he was really a wide 9 at Duke. And so he's learning. And we didn't see much from Javonte Jean-Baptiste last spring either.
Absolutely. He was a non-entity. No, I shouldn't say non-entity. He wasn't who he became, right, in the regular season at this point last year. He wasn't. Right. He was just going to be a depth piece. He was going to be a solid starter. And he, exceeded expectations, right? I don't know if RJ Oben's going to be that guy, but I thought he played well today from what I was able to gather.
Yeah, I mean, you saw burst off the edge. You saw him making plays in the pass game. He had the big strip sack of Kenny Minchie, but he had a couple other pressures where he forced the quarterback up. He had a couple good run sets off the edge. So, I was really, okay, cool. It was not like, oh, wow, RJ Oben's really good. I mean, we kind of had high hopes for him, but it was more so like, haven't seen it yet. It was just more of a sigh of relief. Like, all right, RJ's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. He can be that. And then I saw Jason Onye, I thought was really good today.
He was dynamic up the middle.
Really good today. Seeing him split that double team the way he did of Pendleton and Pendleton and Schrouth was like, wow, okay. We've seen him win with speed before, but to win with power that way, he was different today. And Josh Burnham was really good today.
He made a play.
He's so smart.
First
he's
play of the game.
Really explosive off the ball. He's really good. And so today you saw Burnham. You saw all three big ends today had some really impressive plays. Burnham had a tackle for loss. RJ Oben had a strip sack and several pressures. Burnham had a couple other pressures in this game. And then Bryce Young had one of the best defensive plays of the game on the fumble that he forced. And here's why I say that. So he was the read key on an inside zone read play.
Yep.
And so he kind of stayed outside and forced the give. And as soon as the give was declared, he exploded downhill and just got on the running back in a hurry and then knocks the ball out.
Flung him down like a rag doll.
Yeah, that was
his closing
impressive.
speed. Just to piggyback off of that, his closing speed.
You go and explain it, and I'm going to go. Yeah, I'm going to eat some pizza.
Yeah. His closing speed from where he was playing the read, right? Because he knew he was the read. When you're not blocked, you know you're the read. And so he did a great job. And I also like the fact that, look, these younger guys that are coming up, they've been playing against us in high school too. So he's had an opportunity to kind of get used to playing against these kinds of offenses. But he did a great job of just standing there, like Brian said, forcing the give. But then he came downhill so fast. And I have a feeling if it was a keep, he would have exploded to the ball carrier, to the quarterback, just as fast as he came downhill on the running back. But the running back didn't even have a chance to hit the hole because he came downhill so fast. His closing speed from point A to point B was really, really impressive. It was really, really impressive. And then just got a hold of it and then showed his strength by just flinging the running back down, forcing the ball on the ground. I mean, it was an impressive play by a young guy where you hope that, that kind of leads to other things. But that was a really, really nice fundamental play, but then using his athleticism to impress as well. I was really impressed by that.
Vince, I just want to take a quick pause real quick and bring this up. But this is from Carberry Q. He said, I just got here, so there's that. Sending my kid off to Iraq, so had different priorities earlier.
Oh.
So I want to, obviously, we'll be praying for him, but also want to thank you for raising a young man that's willing to serve our country and fight on our behalf. So we can do silly things like getting in on a YouTube channel and talking about Notre Dame football. And it's those are the people that fight for our freedoms to make sure that we can still do those things. And so 100%. We certainly appreciate you very, very much. And can certainly understand why your eyes and your mind and your things were elsewhere. Because it's far, far more important than what we're talking about today.
Spring college football game is so
but hopefully we can keep your mind off of a little bit and give you a little bit of a reprieve and help you enjoy something that you love. So
100%.
Back to the big end position, Vince. Seeing all three of those guys, Oben, Burnham, and Bryce Young, all making plays today was a very good sign. It's a very good sign. And they all there's an athleticism there. There's some things there. Viper. I thought Jordan Botelho did some good things today. There was he had some good run sets. He had a couple good pressures, but this is the thing with Jordan Botelho. You're a fifth-year senior, and you're getting called twice for offsides. And one of them turned out to be a huge play because it was a third down. I'm trying to find it. It was a third down, and you had made a stop. And instead of you getting off the field, you get called for an offsides, and you give them extra yards. And then they go down and I think they ended up scoring on that particular drive, if I remember correctly, didn't they? I think the blue team did.
I just remember it gave them new life. I remember that very vividly, that it gave them new life. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the touchdown pass that Angeli threw. It was 3rd and 15, and they ran a tunnel screen that got blown up.
It got absolutely blown up. Yes.
And so he jumps off sides. They run the play again, 3rd and 10, and that's when you hit that seam throw for the touchdown. That cost you points.
Yes.
You're a fifth-year senior, and you jump off sides because you're not being disciplined, and it cost your team points. That's the maddening thing with Jordan Botelho.
Right.
Like, if Boubacar would have done that or Bryce Young would have done that, you're like, you know what, young guy, you're a fifth-year senior.
Right.
That's the stuff that's frustrating because he'll do some good things, but then he jumped off sides on the very next play.
Right.
And it got negated because they scored the touchdown. And so let's say a Don Schuler would have squeezed that play a little bit harder and picks that pass off backside. Or the ball goes up in the air and it gets picked. Because remember, initially the ball got floated up in the air, and he picks it off, and it's negated because you weren't disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. You weren't disciplined. And so I think it was the touchdown pass. He jumps early. The one before was he was lined up offside. So he did two different mistakes. And the one lined up offsides, to me, that's even worse.
I hate that. That's terrible. The ball's right there. Just look. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah. We can't have that from a fifth-year senior, man. You just can't. You can't have that from a fifth-year senior. And so the Viper position to me is still a little bit concerning. I didn't see a ton from Junior Tuihalamaka today. I'm going to go back and watch him.
That part's concerning.
Yeah. He may have played well. I just didn't notice him.
Right.
Boubacar is really the only guy today that I thought was really, really stood out to me. And so that's a good sign. Up the middle, we didn't see a ton from Riley and Howard. I thought Jason Onye had a monster game. Donovan Heinisch got whooped a couple times by Rocco Spindler. But when he wasn't lined up against Rocco Spindler, he was pretty good. You know what I mean? Like he was.
Right.
And so, those are things that you saw and you liked. And I thought he did some good things. You know who I thought played really well, especially in the second half? I thought Brendan Vernon looked really good inside. There was a play where him and Drake Bowen, he had a play where he was going against, I think it was Christopher Tarrick. But he beat him off the line, and Christopher Tarrick goes to shoot his hands, and he rocks him down, and then Tarrick resets well, and then Brennan knocked him down again, and him and Drake Bowen arrived at the quarterback at the same time. I don't know what the issue that the Notre Dame coaches have with Brendan Vernon, or if he's just not consistent in practice, or I don't know what the issue is, but the kid that I saw today is a flipping baller, and they need to figure it out. I mean, take that kid aside, work with him, coach him up, do whatever, but that kid can play.
Yeah.
And if they can't find a way to get more out of Brendan Vernon, that's a mistake. Like, there's a lot of stuff we saw today from the D-line that tells me Al Golden, when he wants to coach a guy, is really good. My concern is I don't know that he necessarily wants to coach everybody. And sometimes that's understandable. You have a kid that doesn't want to be coached or doesn't listen. You sometimes it's like, man, you just got to, dust your feet off your sandals as you leave the town kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just, I've tried. You don't want to be coached. I'm not going to waste my time on you. I don't think that's true when it comes to Brendan Vernon. I think he wants to be coached. And the fact that they put a 245-pound true freshman who has no business playing three technique. I mean, we saw Cole Mullins get driven off the ball today. That kid's 245 pounds. He should not be playing three technique. Brendan Vernon right now, today, from what I saw today, was a much better player. Cole Mullins should be playing big end right now. That's where his game should be. That's not fair to that kid.
Right.
But Brendan Vernon, if you can't coach that up, holy moly. Because what I saw today, he's very much still a work in progress, but I saw a kid that can flat out win at the line of scrimmage. Now, Brendan, for his sake, has to continue to work and learn and get better and improve himself and get stronger and all that. But, man, if Brendan Vernon can build on what he did this spring in this spring game, like, he flashed a lot for me today, Vince. Like, that was super encouraging. So, one of the things that I thought that I was already excited about coming into this game was that I felt the depth at D tackle had really established itself. Meaning, you got Howard and Riley, but I thought Jason Onye's had a very good spring, and I thought Donovan Heinisch had a very good spring, and you already know what Rubio can do.
Right.
But when you see a guy like Brendan Vernon also make a play, Devin Houston had a couple really impressive plays today as well. You start saying, like, okay, they got, if you can coach these young cats up, the future, like John A1 put a post on the board last night, and it was a really good point. And it was, I'm concerned about the D-line after this season because you lose Batoho, you lose Mills, you lose Cross, you're going to lose Oben, and we don't really know what's coming up down the pike. What I saw today, if they can build on what I saw today, I feel a lot better about it because you got Onye's got another year left. He looked like a dude today. As long as Donovan Heinisch isn't going against Rocco Spindler, he looked really good today. I love what I saw from Brendan Vernon. Sean Sevillano, again, when he wasn't going against Rocco Spindler, looked pretty good today. He had some plays. And then you see Devin Houston starting to make some plays up there. Now, again, Devin had some plays where he got blocked. He's got a lot to learn.
Sure.
But he showed me some stuff today, Vince. A lot of the younger D tackles showed me some stuff today, and that's where I had more concerns. I had no concerns about the starting two deep. I got Mills and Cross, arguably the best D tackle tandem in football. It's them or the kids from Michigan, in my opinion, right? Mason Graham and what's the big kid's name? Kenneth Grant. It's Notre Dame or Michigan's guys, right? Notre Dame's too deep at that position, loaded. Onye, Donovan having great springs. And then Rubio comes back most likely in the fall. Right now the plan is he'll be back. I feel great about that group of 5. But with the way Brendan Vernon played today, the way that Sean Sevillano played today and last week, Sean played well last week too. And the flashes I saw from Devin Houston, I'm like, okay, Al Washington, you got some young bucks to work with. Go get those cats ready to go. Their time may not be 2024, but you're going to need those guys. And there's some ballers in that group, man. So I actually kind of feel really good about the future of the interior of the defensive line. The Viper position's a little bit more concerning. The big end position with Burnham still having 2 years left after this year, because Burnham was a redshirt freshman this past year. He's a redshirt sophomore. And now Bryce Young, you're going to be loaded at big end for years. Viper, you got to figure out some answers. You got Boubacar in the future after that. I'm not quite sure what it is. But up the middle, if Al Washington can really take pride in developing these young bucks, whoo boy. Because they showed me some things today, Vince. I was very pleased. But I thought Brennan, of the young players, was the most impressive to me today with consistently. And I'll send you a couple of those clips that I saw today.
Yeah, please do.
But it was really good to see. Really good to see.
Well, I'll be looking forward to your defensive breakdown upon further review, and I'll go back and watch the film as well. But that's really what I'm looking forward to. I was telling you this in the car, and there were defensive guys that flashed, obviously, across the board. But it's so hard when it's Notre Dame playing against Notre Dame, because Notre Dame's offense is always on the field, and so I'm watching Notre Dame's offense, I'm watching route combinations, I'm doing all of this, and it's like, well, if we want to have a good breakdown, we need to be watching both sides of the ball at both times. It's like, and it's really hard, to be honest with you. And I, look, I'll be the first one to admit I get giddy over offense, right? Yeah. And so I'm watching the offense more than I'm watching the defense, but the defense made plays today. And I echo everything that you said on the defensive line. So looking forward to your breakdown on that too. Let's move back to linebacker.
Let me just say this. That's also partly why I was so happy with the play of the interior offensive line, because they were going against some dudes that were playing really well today.
100%.
And they had to be on top of their game. And so, yeah, that's where
Yeah. 100%. So linebacker, young, fast, athletic,
deep.
Yeah.
Vince, there was not a linebacker today that I wasn't impressed with. Not one. I thought they all did some really good things today, including Trey Reeder. I think that's who I saw out there in the second team, running around. But I mean, it really starts with Drake Bowen. I mean, he is a guy that you have to look at on the let's go blue team and then gold team on this particular one, Vince. I thought Drake, he's so much more instinctive than he showed in high school. Because this was the only, I said this when Drake was coming out. The only concern I had about Drake was the way that they used him in high school. He just flew to the ball.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of
in the middle, just go.
Right. Yeah. How does he read offenses?
Sure.
You just
and he was playing 3A football,
and that's not a knock.
Indiana. Yeah.
And it's not a knock on his high school coaches. I mean, if you'd be an idiot if you didn't use Drake Bowen that way in high school.
Right. 100%.
It's like you're smart to do so. But as an evaluator projecting to the next level, there are questions about, okay, does he have that feel and those instincts? And he's shown flashes of it, and he's shown the ability, but he just the play that I told you I wanted you to go back and watch. It was the swing screen to Justin Fisher. And he's coming out, and Cooper Flanagan is trying to block him, and Drake gives him a little nod and then just gets outside of him and blows it up. You're just like, dude, what the heck? He was so good today, and he's so rangy and powerful and athletic. Now, the counter to that is there's still a couple times where he will squeeze down inside and not properly understand the fit and allow himself to get kind of sealed. That's something that he's going to have to, that's part of that maturation process for an inside Mike linebacker. Sometimes they're inviting you to crash that hole.
Right.
Because they want you to come vertical into that A gap, and then they're going to smack you inside. And you've got to take that contact so that way you can two-way gap it, or that way you can at least stone the gap. And, they're kind of biting you on that. So and so there's still some of that Drake has to still improve upon. But he did a lot of really good things today. A lot of really good things. And he's showing a command up the middle as well that I really like at Mike linebacker. And the other thing too is he's gotten a lot better since December, again, the bowl game. His coverage drops today, Vince, also were really good. And we'll talk about Kingston in a minute, but him and Kingston Viliama-Asa are 235 to 240 pound guys that flip and fly when they open up and get into their hook curl zones and get into different zones. Those are some big boys that can move. But the feel, because Drake didn't do a lot of coverage in high school, Vince. He wasn't in coverage a whole lot in high school.
He doesn't need to be.
That was an issue a little bit for him in the fall as a freshman. He showed much more comfort and understanding of, like, even the throw to Micah Gilbert. Part of the reason that was such a tough window is because Drake was screaming out underneath the curl. And so those are things that you say, man, this is a kid that understands what he's supposed to do and is showing a much better feel for it. Still some stuff to clean up with run fits and, making sure you're where you need to be. But I really liked what I saw from him today. Nice. Really liked what I saw from him. Jalen Sneed, I didn't see a lot of. He had a couple plays. I just didn't see it. I don't know if you have something to add about Jalen. When I say I don't see a lot of, guys, I can't watch every person when it's live.
That's the problem.
So when I say that, it's not that Jalen didn't play well. I didn't notice him. And I honestly wasn't looking at him because I evaluated him a lot last week.
Right.
And I thought he did some really good things. So I just didn't notice him a lot today. And, so that was kind of my thoughts on that. So I thought Drake was the big takeaway for me for the blue linebacker team group today. Vince, he was.
Nope, absolutely. Well, you want to flip over to KVA and how he did?
Well, yeah.
I know that's
which team was Preston Zinner was also on the gold team too today, wasn't he? I think he was as well.
In front of me.
But so I thought Kingston, the thing I said to you during the scrimmage is like, you just continue to get impressed with how fluid and smooth he is.
He just looks like a linebacker.
Well, he looks like an old school tackle to tackle thumper.
Right.
He's like 6'2.5", 6'3". He's got like big old giant calves.
Sure.
Got a big old butt.
Yes.
He looks like that thick. You don't want him getting out of the tackle box. Like that's how he looks, just standing there. You're like, this is an old school 1995 Mike linebacker that's flying downhill. And then he starts running. And you're like, this guy can move. And that's why I say there's a lot of people that are trying to do this Drake versus Kingston thing. And I looked over at Sean Davis last week, and there was a play where it was Drake was at Mike, Kingston was at Will, and Jaden Osbury is at Rover. And I was like, that's your future at linebacker.
Yes.
Drake and Kingston aren't battling for one position, and that's it, win or take all, because they can both play both positions. But Kingston is just so fluid. He's so instinctive. He just like his game. He is the defensive version of CJ Carr. Yeah. And that his football IQ for a rookie is off the charts. I mean, it is just, it's incredible, but he's not winning with just smarts. He can move. But when you can move and you know where to go, like, dude, and now you also saw today, he's got to get stronger. He looked like a freshman now I know he's 235, but he's still a freshman in the weight room. And so that'll be kind of in the evolution for him. But his feel for the game and his athleticism has truly surprised me. It really has, Vince, because you just don't see guys that look like him with the big old calves and the big old thighs. They don't normally run like he runs. And that's the thing and he's not like he's going to run a 4.4 at combine. It's just he's so fluid and smooth, and he just gets where he needs to get to. He's a really good football player, man.
Yeah.
He's a really good football player.
Yes, absolutely. He looks like he just looks like a football player, but his athleticism, like the fact that he got so deep and broke up that pass that we talked about when we were talking about the offense, right? And it was the pass to Greathouse. And it was a little bit late coming out of CJ Carr's hand, which allowed him to get there. But he was 25 yards, back. And so he's able to get into his drop so quickly. and make plays like
but
that.
The angle was good too, Vince. He didn't undercut it or overcut it.
That's just not normal for a middle linebacker to be able to get that kind of depth and make a play on the football.
A freshman
the way
in his first semester.
Yes, exactly. That was the most impressive play to me, was the way he was able to play in space against the pass. Like that was incredibly impressive to me, and just shows how athletic he is and his smarts and his nose for the football and where to go and where to be and how to play it. Like that's next level stuff. That's not second semester high school senior stuff. You know what I mean? And I don't know how you I'm not saying he's a starter. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm saying I don't know how you can keep him off the field at times. He's going to have to be on the field.
Well, and that's the thing, is they're going to play them all. They're going to play them all. And that's the thing about him, is he can play Mike, he can play Will. I mean, you can use him in a rotation with Drake, but you can also put him on the field at the same time as Drake.
Right.
I thought I remember watching Preston Zinner and being like, this kid's moving around. It's exactly what I said the other day. I just couldn't remember what team I kept visualizing a green jersey because he was wearing green last year.
Oh yeah.
But I have notes of 25 moving really well, like like how he runs, and he's going to have a tough time getting on the field. Jaden Alsbury was really good today. He had some issues in coverage against Jaden Greathouse, but he recovered the one time in the breakup. But he was working with the nickels during pregame, like drill wise, and I'm like, dude, he moves as well as the nickels do. It's ridiculous. Like, he's every bit as athletic as Jordan Clark, who's 5'10", 180 pounds.
Right.
I mean, and he made a lot of plays today. We could literally do an entire show on just the linebackers, the talent at linebacker. I mean, it was really, Jaden was outstanding today. Rangy. He's looking more comfortable in space. He was an inside backer in high school. He's looking a lot more comfortable playing in space now, which was a positive sign, because you didn't know if that would necessarily be the case when he was coming out. You knew he's athletic and you knew that he was smart, but that doesn't equal I can go from Mike to Rover.
Right.
So that was a good sign. I saw that. I did notice that Jalen Sneed was playing a lot of Will today, which was a good thing, because I want to see him be able to play multiple positions. But Jaden Alsbury is a really good football player. And then Kahano Hikia. So what I said the other day, Vince, I'm going to set you up for this because I talked a lot about him the other day.
Okay.
Somebody asked me in the mailbag yesterday, and then I want you to take it and run with it. What's some of the biggest surprises you've had this spring? And one of the surprises I said is, I'm shocked at how quickly Kahano Kia has gotten up to football speed and instincts after not playing for two. And not, when I mean not playing, it wasn't like he was injured and he was with the team, but going and in film room, but he just was injured. He redshirted in 22 and then was injured in 23 and not, hasn't played. No, this kid was literally on a Mormon mission, right? Church of the Latter-day Saints, or,
yes,
I forget what they call it, but some people don't like it when you say Mormon mission, but that's what it is. It's not meant to be disrespectful, so you'll be fine. But they're not allowed to play football. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he comes back, and in one spring, in 15 freaking practices, he's instinctive and getting downhill and eating and racking up 12 tackles in a freaking spring game. That's impressive to me.
Yeah. It's funny because as we're watching the game, and again, admittedly, I'm watching the offense, but then I'm seeing 43 in white keep coming and keep meeting the football.
Who the freaking heck is this kid?
I looked at my roster 3 times. I'm like, 43, what? It's Kia. Okay, yeah. And it was amazing to me how forgotten he was. And then now all of a sudden he's in the mix.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, he was flying all over the football and all over the field to the football. I was very impressed by him. Because I will admittedly say that I had kind of forgotten about him because he's been gone for 2 years. I mean, I just had, right? And he played exceptionally well. This was a great opportunity for him to get out, at least in front of us, because we're not at every practice and things like that. I'm sure he's been showing out at practice or whatever, but to see it the way I saw it today, it was like, okay, this kid can still play. And if this is what he's able to do in 15 practices, I wonder where he's going to be at after X amount of practices in the
Where's
fall.
he going to be next spring?
You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
All of the above, right? And so he is forcing himself into the conversation. What that looks like come the season, I have no idea. But at the very least, I think he's going to be a stalwart on special teams, flying down the field, making a play on kickoff or whatever the case may be. But he is not so quietly putting his name in the mix at the linebacker position too.
Well,
I was impressed.
And he looked like this last week, Vince. I mean, there was one play. He had one of them. Now, the thing is, this is what I said. He whiffed on the tackle last week. He read it, flew downhill, and he just whiffed on the tackle. And it's like, that's the stuff that's the 2-year off rustiness of the technical aspect of, you're going against Jeremiah Love or Jordarian Price in the hole. And if you're not sound, they're going to make you look silly. And they did that, but he read it so well and he got downhill so well. Right. Well, today he wasn't missing on those plays. You know what I mean?
Right.
And, it was real. But that's the thing, Vince. I can't tell you a linebacker today that I wasn't like that. There's not a linebacker on the roster that I watched today. And again, I didn't pay attention to Jack Kaiser or Jalen Sneed because we've seen a lot of them this spring, and Jack is what he is.
Right.
I didn't see a linebacker today. And the couple plays I saw Jalen Sneed, I was like, dude, that guy can really run.
Yeah.
But I didn't see a guy today that I wasn't like, that kid's really good. And that kid's a really good football player.
Right.
And the problem is, though, you got 8 or 9 of those guys. You can't play not 8 or 9 guys.
Exactly.
But here's what I'm going to tell you right now. You know who right now is the most excited about the linebacker room at Notre Dame? Do you know the coach? No. There's a coach on this team that's even more excited about the linebacker room than Max Bulla. You know who it is?
Golden or Freeman?
No. Marty Biaggi.
Oh, okay.
Because he's going to have Kahanu Kia and Preston Zinner and those guys freaking flying down on his kickoff coverage team.
Good call. Yeah.
I had a buddy of mine who coached at, I think he was at Vanderbilt at the time. He's a special teams coordinator. He's at Penn State now. And I remember watching, or actually this would have been the year, was it 2018? Did they play? Yes, it was 2018 is when he was like, dude, what makes Notre Dame so hard to defend and kick coverage? He goes, because you have a bunch of 230-pound kids running down the field running 4.5s.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how this group is. It's just like these guys can absolutely fly. They can run. They can hit. They're long. And you're going to have Jaden Alsbury, Preston Zinner, Kahanu Kia, Kingsley Asa, and Drake Bowen running down, and Jack Kaiser running down on your kickoff coverage team this year.
Mm-hmm.
With Luke Towlich, and it's just like, and Kennedy or Lacker maybe, and you're just like, dude, they're going to be blowing people up.
Right.
And that's what I say, like, Biaggi's got to be like, oh my gosh, my punt coverage and kick coverage units are going to be so much fun to coach this year.
For sure.
Because you're talking about those Preston Zinner and Kahanu Kia are third-string linebackers that may not get a chance to play much of linebacker this year, that not that long ago would have been playing on playoff teams, if not starting on playoff teams.
100%.
I'm thinking of the 2020 season here.
Right, 100%.
And like, dude, these guys can ball. I mean, it's a loaded room. I joked the other day. I was like, Max Bulla's got to be thinking, my first full-time job is this. Like, I don't know what I did to the football gods to deserve this, but thank you.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's but it's also a young enough group to where he's got to coach them up. And so he plays an important role. It's not just like, dude, don't screw it up. It kind of is that, but like, these are still all really young, inexperienced kids outside of Jack Kaiser.
Right.
So you got to coach them up and get them ready to play. But man, he's got some stuff to work with at linebacker, Vince.
No doubt.
Cornerback is, again, we kind of got to us rolling through. It's like a 50-minute segment on the defense.
I know, right?
Cornerback room, Christian Gray, very good today. Jaden Mickey was really good today.
Yep.
And the reason that I'm excited about that is Jaden was actually playing well in vertical coverage. And that's normally not an area where he thrives. He played very well in vertical coverage. That was encouraging to see. Micah Bell still has a lot of technical stuff to clean up. He got beat a couple times today because his technique and feel isn't there yet. But we also saw him do a lot of good things today too, Vince, where he made a lot of plays today. And so you start feeling because you don't need him to be that guy, in my opinion. And so, like, it's funny. You're seeing two different thoughts. You've seen people talk about how well Micah Bell played today, and somebody else is talking about he had a tough day. And I don't think Micah had a tough day. I thought Micah Gilbert had a great route and a great ball, and he got beat. But there's other times, like he was hip to hip with KK Smith on that outside wheel route, and he broke it up. He was the cornerback in coverage on that fourth down play at the end of the game, and he helped break that up. He's got to learn the game still. The technical part is still a work in progress for him. He doesn't have the football IQ yet that Jaden Mickey and Christian Gray have. He's still a track guy learning to play football. But he to me, after what I saw today and what I saw last week, Micah's taken steps. And he's even more comfortable in the slot. When he got in some trouble today was when he was playing outside. He wasn't planning on playing outside this year. He's only playing outside because Benjamin Morrison got hurt and Clarence Lewis transferred.
Right.
And he has to play outside more. So I was encouraged by what I saw today from Micah Bell. He's not a finished product, and you're not having to start him this year. But he showed me growth this year, and that's what I wanted to see. Does he have some fight in him?
Sure.
Because that's what I always worry about fast track kids. Because like they like football in high school when nobody can touch them because they're so fast.
Right.
But when you get to college and you're 5'9.5", 5'10", and a $180, $185, and it's now you're the small guy in the field and you can't just outrun everybody, do you really like this part of the game? And so to see Micah compete, now he's got to get a lot better at block destruction and stuff like that, but he competed. He competed today. That's huge for me. Because look, guys, he's got to learn the technical part. Gee, I don't know if Notre Dame has a cornerbacks coach who's able to teach him the technical part of the game. That's going to be fine. But is this kid willing to compete? And that was the best thing I saw today is, he needs to work on all this stuff, but this is a kid that's willing to compete. Mm-hmm. And so he answered the biggest concern I have for him as a track kid. Is he going to compete? And he did. Mm-hmm. He did. And so the future's looking bright for him. And the good news is right now they don't need him.
They don't need him, exactly.
Be that guy. They got Jordan Clark in the nickel. Yeah. They can put Jaden Osbury and Jalen Sneed in the nickel at times. They don't need him outside. They needed him this spring outside, but you're going to get Benjamin Morrison back. You're going to get a portal guy. You're going to have Leonard Moore and Carson Hobbs show up in the summer, and they can get back to just having him focus on nickel. But you're at the point now where if he can continue down this path, you may not need to go to the portal again next year for a nickel like you've had to go the last 2 years. And that's the thing that has me kind of fired up about that. So that's kind of my takeaways on corner. We've talked a lot about Jaden Mickey and Christian Gray. If you want to add anything to their performance, you can. But Micah Bell was my big takeaway today.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was impressed with Jaden Mickey because, we kind of talked about him as like he wasn't really involved because they weren't throwing his direction because he was covering so well. I mean, it was kind of the Ben Morrison effect, but with Jaden Mickey in the spring game. You know what I mean? It's like, well, we didn't see Ben Morrison's name get called a lot because normally in there you can't really throw to his direction. That was Jaden Mickey today. Like I thought he quietly played very, very well, and that's what you want from a corner because they're not throwing in his direction. So that's my takeaway from Jaden Mickey and how he went about his business. And I still love the fact that he's the best trash talker on the team. Still enjoy that piece of it as well. How about safety?
Xavier. Adon Schuler, I thought, was very up and down today.
Missed a big tackle, but it was against Jeremiah Love.
He's got to make that
third
play.
Down, got to make that. He absolutely read it right,
and it was an angle.
Came downhill fast.
The one thing I've said about Adon that he needs to work on is he still has to work on the proper angles, and that's 100% what that play was. He came to level. Jeremiah beat him outside with speed. You want to force Jeremiah. If you're going to miss, you got to miss where you force him back inside. Right. You can't come to, because basically what I mean, if you come too level and you miss him, he outruns you outside. If you come too high, he beats you up inside. You want to come down this way to where if you do kind of slightly overplay it, he cuts you inside, but you're still there to kind of turn and square and tackle him.
Right.
But when you come too level and too shallow, I think shallow is a better way of saying it.
Right.
Then he can kind of give you the move he gave you and beat you outside.
Sure.
Those are the things. And then he was a second late responding to that backside seam. That's what I told you the time. Don's responsible for closing on that backside seam route, which is what the touchdown pass to Eli Raridan was. So those are things that he needs to still get better at. He had some mistakes today, but he also made 7 tackles, including 6 solos. There was another play. He missed another tackle, I think, to the other side.
Okay.
In coverage. But there was also some good things that Adon did today too. He filled the alleys aggressively. He did know what he was doing on that backside seam and forced the ball, hit the guy, and it bounced up in the air. But if he's there just a split second sooner, then all of a sudden he's hitting that guy and it's going to the ground or it's floating up in the air and he's taking Eli Raridan out. And now one of his guys has a chance to maybe make a play on that ball. So again, it's just he knows what he's doing, which is good. But now it's the technical part and the timing part where you just got to get there a little bit quicker or get there with a little bit better angle. And those are the things that Adon's going to have to improve upon from what we saw today. Fair?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. He's just still raw. He's still a little bit raw. I mean, he's getting a lot of playing time.
I think he's young.
Right, absolutely. And do I think he can still be effective playing for this team this year? Yeah, I do. But he's going to have to clean up some of that stuff because the play that he misses against Jeremiah Love coming down too shallow and all of those different things, that could be a huge miss that could lead to a scoring drive. Can't miss that. You can't miss that play because everybody else did their job. That's your job. You come unblocked. You got to make the play. You know what I mean? And so that's what he has to get better at. He has to get better at making the plays in space and things of that nature in the run game. I completely agree with that. So
one of the things I talked about in my preview, Vince, was Notre Dame needs one of, if not both of, Luke Talich and Ben Minnick to step up. And the thing I said also is they're going to get a great opportunity to do so. And while there's some things I would critique here and there I thought they were both around the ball a lot today.
Yeah.
You know, obviously Luke coming over to get that tip pass for the interception. I thought Ben had a great close on a crossing route and broke up a pass on a crossing route.
Yep.
It was good to see those two kids making plays today. Very good. Because Adon has far outplayed them both this spring. They did some good things today. And you're like, okay, if they can stay healthy, because that's the big thing. You and I were talking about that before the game with somebody.
Yep.
I was like, you're going to put those two kids on the same team, the two kids that have struggled to stay healthy all, in their careers, but they both finished the spring healthy and they both played well. Ben can run. There's no doubt. Ben can fly. It's just he's undersized and he gets banged up a lot.
Right.
But he finished the spring healthy and he made some plays today. Luke made some plays today. And it wasn't just the interception. There was other things they did well too. And so I was pleased with what I saw from those two kids. I thought they had a really good day today.
Yep.
Really good day today.
Absolutely. You want them to have good days, not because you're necessarily counting on them to help in the defensive backfield. I mean, it's important. You want them to be there. You want them taking the necessary steps, getting to where they need to be, moving in that direction. But their confidence level can be one that they can still be super good on special teams too.
Mm-hmm.
It just goes back to that point that we were making about the linebackers and how excited Marty Biaggi is going to be. You kidding me? With these two guys also available to you for special teams, 100%. Those guys are going to make an impact on special teams. And that's why they're both.
There's a lot of those kind of kids on
mean?
defense for Notre Dame. There's a lot of those kids on defense for Notre Dame.
So deep. They're so deep defensively. And they're going to make Marty Biaggi into a genius, frankly, is how that's going to work out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's honestly a big part of that, but that's a conversation for another day. Vince, we did have a few super chats we need to get to before we get out of here. Let's get to those and we can rock and roll with those. We want to thank you all very, very much for those, by the way.
All right. Alex Udell, thank you very much for the super chat. Says CJ Carr is clearly the future at quarterback. The guy is special.
He is special. He's very talented. And if I was a betting man, that's probably where my bet would be. I'm just not ready to write off Kenny Minchie or eventually Deuce Knight. I think most likely if CJ is what we think he is, Deuce is going to need a little bit more time. Deuce is the opposite of CJ. Yeah. Deuce is loaded with physical gifts, but has a lot to learn about the position. I was telling a friend of mine the other day, if Deuce Knight is willing to stick it out and sit a couple years at Notre Dame, playing behind CJ Carr is going to be the best thing to ever happen to him because where CJ is great, Deuce is not, which means he get to watch and learn and kind of take some of the tips that he can learn from CJ and then apply it to his just incredible gifts and feel for the game and athleticism and big arm. He'll have a chance to be special. That's the goal, is that line of succession of CJ's that dude and eventually Deuce comes right in behind him and he's that dude. And that's kind of how you rock and roll.
Right.
But I'm just not ready to write off Kenny Minchie right now. I mean, look, I think CJ's special. I do. I gave him a 5-star grade. You guys know I love CJ Carr.
For a reason, yeah.
But you just watch Kenny Minchie make some throws and you're just like, yeah, I'm not writing that kid off. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. He's got some of that it stuff to him as well.
No doubt.
He really, really does. Scott Gibbs with a super sticker. Thank you, Scott, so much. Trevor Rocket with another IB and IB Nation. Respect to you all. We appreciate you, man. And thank you again for another super chat. I appreciate both of those very, very much. We had one from DJ who had his knee replacement surgery. Bro, you just had knee replacement surgery, man. We appreciate the money, but you need to be
let's have good insurance.
You may need some new pillows and something to put up underneath the knees, my brother. So, but we appreciate you so much, man. We really do. We really do.
And Aiden Benami with the super chat. Thank you very much. Brian, you were right. Wow, Great House doesn't even look like the same person. You can tell Eli Raridan is legit, not being rude, but Angeli is not that good.
Well, what do you mean by not that good? Are you referring to like not that good, meaning he's not a guy that's going to win you a national championship? Sure. I don't think he's that. But look, Steve Angeli can win a lot of games in Notre Dame. He's not a bum. He's not a stiff. He's not some guy you're like, why the heck is that guy on scholarship in Notre Dame? He's a quality football player, great backup quarterback.
Right.
And can do some things for you. But look, he's not a guy that I believe is going to put a team on his shoulders and carry him to a championship. I just don't. Right. I think Riley Leonard can be that guy. I think Kenny Minchie can be that guy. And I think CJ Carr can be that guy. I think eventually Deuce Knight can be that guy. I think Steve winning a championship is going to have to be about you, or you're in a great position around you. And your job is just, look, we're going to, like, Steve Angeli could be for Michigan, like for Notre Dame, what like JJ McCarthy was for Michigan. We don't need you to carry the team, but you're going to, when you've got to step up and make a play, we need you to make a play.
Right.
Okay. Now they're different players. JJ's got a bigger arm. He's more athletic, but I'm talking about the role.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not comparing them as talents. They're very different talents. JJ's got great talent. I just think JJ should have stayed in college for another year as a developing type of player. I'm talking about the role, where you can go out and beat Penn State on the road and not throw the ball once in the second half. And Steve gets into the right checks and the right calls, and and when he does have to hit a pass, he can hit a pass. If that's what you're saying, he's not that championship guy, sure, I can be on board with that. He's not that type of player. But Steve Angeli has shown enough times in his career, Oregon State today, that he's a quality player.
Sure,
he's a guy you
win a lot of games.
Guy you want in your foxhole in football.
Absolutely,
your football foxhole. You want him in there,
right?
You just don't necessarily want him as your general. That's where I'm at. I got to read this one. This is from Jim on Sports. This is our guy Jim. We love Jim. We hung out with Jim today at the game. Jim said, "Vince, have you figured out who the guy with the WWE belt was?"
Nope.
So this was such a funny story. So I got to share this with you guys, okay? Vince told you how I almost fought a 90-year-old. I got to tell you guys what Vince did. So we're sitting there, and there's a WWE wrestler, and he's got his WWE belt, and he's on the screen, and
he went to practice.
For the football. And he was also I think he was at the game today, because the WWE belt was in the locker room afterwards. So,
was it really?
Yeah, okay. Dino McCullough handed it to Al Washington, because Al Washington's now on a 2-game win streak.
Yeah,
as head coach of the spring squad. And so Vince comes back with this really thorough answer that just answered all of our questions. Who's the guy with the WWE belt? And Vince goes, some WWE wrestler. And he was dead serious. Like, he was answering the question with some WWE. I'm like, well, thanks, Vince. Wow, we didn't know that. Glad you cleared that up for us, man.
I do.
The best part was Vince was like, just some WWE wrestler. Oh, wow. Thanks, Vince. I thought it was some guy that stole it from a WWE wrestler at the airport. You know what I mean? And now he's at Notre Dame Stadium. Like, thanks, Vince. So that's Jim.
Just wanted to clear that up for you.
That's Jim busting Vince's chops a little bit. So thank you for that, Jim. Appreciate that very much. Money well spent right there, my friend. Michael S. with a super chat. Thank you, Michael. Did Jaden Greathouse get hurt on the last play? Just got rolled up on a little bit. He's fine. All right, last couple here, Mr. D'Addario.
Oh, here we go. Let MGR 1 with the super chat. Thank you so much. He says, I'm stoked. Brian was so impressed with what he saw today. He's goofing off during the show. Great show, guys.
Well, it's also been a long couple months for me, Vince, as you know. It's just for me and my family personally, and loss that we've had to deal with, and the house stuff, and just it's been a long time. And today was fun. Today was fun. And I was 100%. I was so on edge when we got there that little thing that guy did, and he was so rude and disrespectful and just being so dumb. Like, I've had enough. I'm just like,
Yeah.
But from there, it just ended up being a really good day. It was great hanging out with you and Sean Stiers and Jim and Kyle Kelly was there. I always like seeing Kyle, seeing my guys Tim Priester and Tim O'Malley, and and just it was just a good day, man. And then Vince and I drive back. I'm like, hey, man, my wife had gone on a trip to Michigan last weekend and was driving on some back roads. So there's like splattered dead bug carcasses on the. Can we just go through the car wash here real quick? And
let's go.
So got to do that and then being with all of you guys and just a great crowd tonight. And so we appreciate that. But I needed to have some fun today and have some laughs. And I did that. I very much needed that. So, I love
my abilities. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you're reminded that we've been through some challenges, my wife and I, but it's kind of like, but you know what? There's people that always have it worse, and my wife's healthy and she's not battling with what Trevor's wife is going through. We don't have a child that we have to send off to Iraq. You know what I mean? Like we're blessed and we'll overcome because we know that we put our faith in not in ourselves, but in our Lord and Savior. And so, but it doesn't mean that you don't struggle with it. And then on a day like today, where you guys are having some fun and we're having some fun, I needed a good laugh. So I appreciate y'all letting me have some fun today. And Vince showed his professionalism by not letting it face him at all, man. I was like did you see me put it up by the mic? I was seeing if like maybe it would walk through the mic and you'd get some of that pizza smell over on your end, Vince. Man. But you were a champ, man. You were a champ. You fought through it. You kept with the analysis. You weren't like double repeating. Like, I don't know what I was saying. I keep staring at you. So that's why he's that dude.
That's good. Zach Martin with a super chat. Thanks, my man. Appreciate you very much. Number 1, light gray is Morrison's twin. We've said that a bunch for so many reasons. My goodness, is Aeneas a Kyron clone? Number 2, each quarterback really showed who they are today, good and bad. 3, center depth chart a concern? Question.
Number 1, absolutely agree with you on both of those. My comp for Aeneas, I believe in my signing day thing was exactly that. I'm going to pull it up right now, but I'm pretty sure that in my breakdown of Aeneas Williams, and he signed, that I do a player comp, and I'm pretty sure it was, player comp, Kyron Williams. They're built the same. They run the same. They're both good run and pass. I think Aeneas is a little bit more explosive than Kyron was, to be completely honest with you, which is saying something, because Kyron was like the number 3 leading rusher in the NFL last year, something like that. It just shows how low they're. But yeah, they're very similar players. Each quarterback showed who they are today, good and bad. Agree. Yeah. And it's center depth of concern. It is if you have to play a game on April 20th. Right. I think that's fair to say. I don't know that it will be that way come the fall for a couple reasons, but mainly because, number 1, Pat Coogan has played center in the past. If you got into a pinch, you could work on him playing center. The reason you move Sam Pendleton now and let him battle the warts, the issue, he didn't snap great last week, he didn't snap great today, is so that he can get that experience, so that by the time you get to the fall, he'll be more advanced and ready to go. So I think Sam will pick that up really well. He's a talented kid. And then Joe Otting is still a work in progress, but again, days like today are good for him. Yeah. He needs to learn from these mistakes and then go out there and, get better and better and better. And so he's still a learning player. And so it's a concern if you had to play April 20th. I think that's very fair, Zach. So if we're going to talk about what are your feeling about the depth chart today? I don't know if I feel great about that today if Ashton Crane got hurt. But that's the great thing about this period is this isn't you've got to play a game today.
Right, exactly.
We're making these moves as a coaching staff, looking at it from their standpoint. We're making this move now because we're hoping that if his number's called, he's ready to play on August 31st. And days like today need to happen for Sam and he learns from it, and then you battle it, and then he'll spend all summer working on snapping and all fall camp working on snapping, and Joe's going to continue growing and developing, and so I think by the time we get to the fall, I think they'll be okay. Yeah, I think they'll be okay. But you need these kind of days like this today, because Notre Dame's never been a team that really consistently recruits true centers. As I'm thinking about it, I think the only true – what did Braxton Cave play in high school, Vince?
I think he played center, actually.
Because I was going to say, I believe he played center. I think he's the last true center that Notre Dame had. Meaning he played in high school as well.
You know who took over for him when he went to Notre Dame? Chris Summers.
Really? Yeah. My dude. Awesome.
So just want to throw that out there. And just so people know, Chris Summers has helped us out at practices with some camera fit, stuff like that. He's a buddy
local
of mine.
high school football coach.
Yeah, we coached together.
Real good dude. Real good dude. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So Braxton would then be the last one because since then, after Braxton was Nick Martin. He was a tackle in high school. After Zach Martin, Zach's last year, Nick Martin. Nick Martin's last year was 15, and then in 16, Sam Mustapher took over. He played tackle in high school, and so Sam was not a natural.
He was not a good snapping center when they first moved him over there. Remember all the issues that he had? So, but he got better at it.
In practice,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
He had the bad snap against Stanford that year. He was still learning, and then of course he didn't thrive as a shotgun snapping in a hurricane. Darn him. That bum, ridiculous.
Yeah.
Freaking so stupid.
But I mean, I'm talking like in spring ball.
No, I'm just messing.
He had issues.
Yes, he did. That's part of the process.
Yep, exactly.
And then after he was done, he was replaced by Jarrett Patterson, who played left tackle in high school. And then when Jarrett moved over, he was replaced by Zeke Carell, who played guard and tackle in high school. And then now Ashton Craig, who played tackle in high school. So you don't see a lot of teams recruit natural, true centers. And because most high school teams put their best offensive lineman at tackle. That's part of the reason why, and give me that 205-pound, really smart, tough kid that's a wrestler as my center. You know what I mean?
And he's not getting recruited. Exactly. He's not getting recruited as an offensive lineman.
Exactly. Yeah. He's not even getting recruited as an offensive lineman by schools I coached at.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
100%.
That's what a lot of people do. And that's why you don't see a lot of those natural centers. So so that's it. So Zach Martin was the last super chat of the day, Vince. So we were it's Michael Parks. It was a good day. It was a very good day.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody for joining us for our little post-game show here for the Blue Gold game. Really appreciate that. And it was a great crowd. I mean, I turned off the chat, but as I'm looking over, I've got 900 unread comments. So obviously the chat has been on fire ever since I turned it off. But thank you everybody for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Can I share a really sweet moment, Vince, just so I can make everybody happy? So I just asked Angela if she could bring me down a dew because she's upstairs watching TV. And she's like, can't, because this is what's laying on her lap. We got to end the show with this, everybody. This is what's laying on her lap.
Out cold.
That's Sadie laying on her lap, just passed out.
Out cold.
Just passed out.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love
so that's why my wife wasn't able to come bring me a Mountain Dew. I said, you know what? That's worth it.
That's okay. But hey, we're gonna have great stuff lined up for you guys, not only for the rest of the school year, but then in the summer as well. I just sent Bryan my summer schedule, so we're gonna nail down kind of what we're gonna be doing. We got some big plans for the summer, so really looking forward to the schedule and what we're gonna be able to do. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And moving on to the season, man, we got a lot to talk about between now and then, but the season's gonna have
a new format on the show coming up this week as well. So
that's a good
excited
point
about that.
Well,
you and I got to finish that conversation tomorrow and really lock in on the finalized stuff.
100%. So make sure you guys, hit the like button on your way out, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share with your family and friends, and of course, get on the boards.irishbreakdown.com. Bryan is going to do the Upon Further Review tomorrow. He's going to get some film up over there, and so that's what you're going to want to check out. And we're going to be doing some different stuff on the board only moving forward. We have another super chat, of course, from D Troll Hunter. My man, thank you so much. Sorry for the late super chat. Thank you both. No, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. But Bryan and I are going to be doing some stuff only on the board. And I know that Bryan's going to put the recruiting stuff on the board. That's going to, so.
Yeah, a lot of things we're thinking about. We're thinking about with the thought of making sure that we're still giving our YouTube and podcast audience a lot of great stuff. And also making sure that the people that are paying members are also getting their, getting things that are unique to them as too. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. So.
Absolutely. So thanks for hanging out with us for a little while. Really appreciate y'all. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night and have a wonderful rest of the weekend. So for Bryan, I'm Vince. We'll talk to you next time on the Irish Breakdown podcast.